Testing. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our special council meeting on March the 11th, 2026. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss water-related matters. I will now call on Tim Brubaker, Regional Clerk, to conduct the roll call.
Thank you. Chair Redmond.
Present.
Councillor Craig. Councillor Erb. Present. Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Councillor Gowing.
Good morning.
Councillor Harris.
Present.
Councillor Hunick. Present. Councillor James.
Present.
Councillor Liggett. I can see Councillor Liggett online. Councillor McCabe. Present. Councillor Nowak.
Present.
Councillor Rodriguez.
Present.
Councillor Salonen. Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Councillor Urbanovich.
Present.
Councillor Wolf. Present. Thank you, Chair.
I'd like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Chinootan peoples. In doing this, I want to reflect on what it means to be doing important community work like we're engaging in collectively today, and also my own individual relationship to the land. As a settler, one of the most important aspects of my individual journey towards truth and reconciliation has been to listen. I am continually grateful to a community that shares their stories and their concerns with me. As well as chair of the region, I know I carry a large responsibility to ensure that it is not just myself on an individual level listening and acting, but that as a government we are listening and creating action with the community. I'm offering this acknowledgement as one of the many actions I personally and the region largely is taking on our journey towards reconciliation. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? Seeing none, we now will move to delegations. They are listed on the agenda, and I'd like to remind all delegations of some guidelines for participation. If you're attending in person, please proceed to the podium when you're called upon. You will have 5 minutes to speak if you are registered before the deadline, and 3 minutes if you registered afterwards. When you see a yellow light, it will indicate you have 1 minute remaining, and when you see a red light, that means your time is up. Additionally, some general reminders: if you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in an immediate removal from the meeting: interrupting councillors, staff, or other delegations; derogatory statements about councillors, staff, or others; turning on your camera at inappropriate times; and hate speech or defamatory comments. One last reminder for delegations: please do not take offense if following your presentation there are no questions from council. This is council's time to really listen and reflect on the opinions and ideas shared with us by our community members. A quick reminder to members of the audience: you are asked to maintain order. This means you may not address council without the permission of the chair, interrupt anyone, disrupt the meeting with unreasonable noise or vocal expression such as applause, booing, or cheering, and displaying signs or posters. Our first delegation is Larry Massio of Waterloo Regional Home Builders Association. I believe you're virtual, Larry, and you have 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Chair Redmond, members of Regional Council. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. WRHBA is here this morning to voice our strong support for Councillor Craig's motion, calling for a fulsome, independent investigation into the origins of the region's current water supply and capacity constraint, along with the recommendations to strengthen oversight moving forward. Water is among the region's most essential public responsibilities. Residents, businesses, and municipal partners all rely on transparent, forward-looking planning to ensure that growth is supported by infrastructure that is resilient, safe, and responsibly managed. Like with many situations in life, we can't know where we're going unless we know where we've been. It is clear that the current constraint has roots, at least partially, in the understanding of the integrated water supply system and the methodology implemented for monitoring that system. The emergency of a water capacity constraint of this scale, with virtually no prior indication of an emerging issue, has raised understandable concerns across the community. Residents and businesses deserve clarity on how this situation developed, whether warning signs were missed, and what systemic improvements are needed to prevent similar issues in the future. An independent, arm's-length review is the most effective way to restore public confidence. Such an investigation can objectively assess the decision-making processes, data assumptions, governance structures, and resourcing that contributed to the present constraint. Importantly, it can also highlight opportunities to modernize oversight, strengthen internal accountability, and improve communication among regional departments, local municipalities, and the public. This is not about assigning blame. It is about ensuring that our systems are robust, transparent, and capable of supporting the region's long-term security. The motion before you today reflects a commitment to responsible stewardship and good governance. At the same time, the consequences of a development freeze are not abstract. WRHBA, together with Build Urban, the Grand Valley Construction Association, and other large community organizations, is in process of retaining an independent economic consultant to quantify the social and economic costs associated with a prolonged inability to bring new housing and employment-related development forward. This work is being conducted entirely at industry cost, but for the sole purpose of ensuring that Council fully understands the broad community-wide impacts of inaction and why a timely, transparent resolution to the water constraint is essential. Embracing an external review will help ensure that future growth, whether it be housing, economic development, or public services, proceeds with confidence in the region's infrastructure planning. So for those reasons, we urge Council to support Agenda Item 6.1 and move forward with a comprehensive independent investigation and subsequent recommendations for a stronger oversight of the water. Thank you for your time, and if there are any questions, I'll try to answer them for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry. I see no questions, but I really do appreciate your coming to express your support.
Thank you.
The next delegation is Matthew Parker from Kitchener. Matthew, you are in person, I believe. You have the floor and you have 5 minutes. Welcome.
I see. Thank you. Chair Redmond, members of Regional Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm here as a resident of Waterloo Region, and I'm here because I believe Councillor Gowing's water protection motion is not just good policy, but it is an urgent necessity. Let me start with something simple. Every morning, like hundreds of thousands of people across the region, I turn on my tap and I trust that clean water will flow. I trust that it will be safe and accessible. That trust, the kind we barely think of, is the foundation on which our entire community is built. Our homes, our businesses, our schools, our hospitals, our future, all of it depend on water. But that trust is now in jeopardy as uncertainty has begun to permeate the public discussion around the issue of water capacity. In December 2025, regional staff confirmed what many had feared. The Mannheim service area, which supplies to all of Kitchener, all of Waterloo, and parts of Cambridge, Woolwich, and Wilmot, has reached a critical water capacity constraint. Demand is outpacing available supply. The system was not designed to sustain the pressure it is now under. Let me put some numbers to this. The total available long-term sustainable water supply in the Mannheim service area is approximately 1,455 liters per second when all systems are fully operational. With the recommended 20% operational resiliency buffer, the bare minimum needed to allow for repairs, maintenance, and emergencies, that number drops to 1,164 liters per second. Current demand, based on building permits issued through 2024, is already approximately 1,356 liters per second. That means we are consuming more water than we can sustainably produce. Regional staff have confirmed that we are operating at a negative 6.7% operational resiliency. I want you to sit with that number for a moment, negative 6.7%. We are not approaching a precipice, we are already past it. Regional hydrogeology manager Jeff Moros told this very council that water levels are reaching a point where we could start losing supply wells. Storage tank levels are dropping more frequently below key thresholds. Groundwater aquifer levels are already under stress. This is not a theoretical problem. This is real. This is now. Now, some will ask, what do provincial water taking permits have to do with regional infrastructure constraint? The answer is everything. Waterloo Region depends on groundwater for approximately 80% of its drinking water supply. We operate one of the most complex municipal groundwater systems in the world, drawing from over 100 wells fed by the Waterloo Moraine aquifer system. We are, by a wide margin, the largest urban community in Ontario that relies almost exclusively on groundwater. And yet, according to provincial records reported by the media, the Ford government has approved more than 100 water-taking permits over the past 5 years, allowing commercial and industrial users to draw water from within our region. Hundreds of additional pre-existing permits remain active. Many of these permits authorize millions, and in some cases billions, of liters per year for terms of up to 10 years. Some of these permits fall into Category 3, the province's highest risk classification, meaning they carry the greatest potential for unacceptable environmental impact. And here is the most troubling part. There is no public indication that the government conducted comprehensive environmental assessments or cumulative water supply capacity studies before issuing these permits. That responsibility rests with the Provincial Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, a ministry that has made it easier, not harder, for companies to extract our water. If anyone doubts that we need stronger protections right now, consider this. Even as we sit in this chamber discussing a water crisis that has halted development across our region, a new application for a permit to take water is under review. And where is this proposed water taking? In Wilmot Township, the very area where the region is actively exploring new sites to add drinking water capacity. Citizens for Safe Groundwater have raised the alarm, noting that the region is pulling from one end of the aquifer system while a private company seeks to pull from the other. This is precisely why Councillor Gowing's motion matters. Without the data, without transparency, without an immediate provincial commitment to pause new water taking permits in this region, water remains precarious. It is important that we understand how we got here. The crisis did not emerge overnight. The Walkerton tragedy of 2000, which killed 7 people and sickened over 2,300, taught Ontario a brutal lesson about what happens when provincial oversight is gutted and water protections are treated as expendable. I want to close with this. Water is not a commodity. It is not a line item. It is not a resource to be extracted until it is gone and then puzzled over. Water is life. It is the foundation of public health, of economic prosperity, of community well-being, and of the natural ecosystems that sustain us all. Councillor Gowing's motion is a necessary and overdue step. It will not solve the crisis on its own, but it will ensure that this council and this community finally has the information it needs to advocate effectively for provincial action. It sends a clear message to Queen's Park that our region demands transparency, accountability, and a moratorium on commercial water-taking permits until the full picture is understood. I urge you to vote in favor of this motion. Our water, our community, and our future depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. I see no questions, so thank you for coming today. The next delegation is Ryan Mounzy, CEO Urban Insights, to talk about the Mannheim service water capacity. Welcome, Ryan. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Redmond, councillors, industry colleagues. I'm here today after reviewing the report that's released the other day, and this is about a risk-based assessment model. We're 4 months in, now entering 5 months in, a full development freeze for new building permits of all sizes. And the timing of this could not be emphasized enough. We need clear risk-based assessment to move forward, to bring back certainty, not only to the housing market, but to the property owners, the investors, the construction industry, to say, when are we going to start to build a single new house? My clients range anywhere from 1 lot to 1,400 units for a total of 2,500 units in the region of Waterloo. All those projects are frozen. And so in understanding, I only work for purpose-built apartment rental developers who are ready to build. And people that have small infill, gentle density housing with the smallest impact on the housing water impact supply are frozen. And I'm not going to read my notes. I'm just going to talk just from what I know. A single house will have a 0.0002 0.08 impact on the water supply if it was granted to be connected to the water system. A fourplex will have a 0.006 impact on the water supply if approved. Where I'm going with this is that I believe you are in a position to do phased-in resiliency buffers and to allow the other 50% to accommodate development now. Small projects should be able to proceed with the limited Tier 1 impact, and then as time progresses and more water comes on available, then you scale up the projects. I wrote a report that I've released externally to talk about the Tier 1, 2, and 3s only as a concept. Allow development of some form to go now. I can verify that I'm getting calls from lending institutions to say what's happening in Waterloo region. I'm receiving calls about that now. And so what I want to do is have the confidence to say the region has a plan, which you do. The region has a system and a framework to add more water, which you do. But we need guidelines to say when can you actually pull permits. And I said this in the last meeting, the region has the hammer with the local area municipalities. You're not issuing building permits. Oh, sorry, you're not issuing water service permits. So as far as I'm concerned, you can let all the development approvals go ahead, and then based off your criteria, start to issue the building permits based off the criteria. So that's my summation today, is that I want to stress to you the importance of providing action now. Next month meeting, we'll be 6 months into the process, half a year without a single building permit being issued. Surely we can do better. We should have the rules that allow Tier 1 projects to go ahead now, as of right, scale in concurrently the larger projects with more than 10 units to 80 units now as the full water capacity comes online, and allow and phase in the big development projects that can start construction without a water permit. And that way you're addressing everyone's needs for the clients that I serve. I do not sit on Build Urban. I do not sit on the Waterloo Region Home Builders Association. I'm a small boutique planning firm of 3 people in Uptown Waterloo. And this is my livelihood. 50% of my projects are in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge. And so I just want to express to you the importance of coming up with a system now. I see Maya Construction here that has student housing projects on hold by Conestoga College. I see Innate here that are really ready to build with some projects. We're surrounded by people that have a vested interest. I wanted to be less than 5 minutes. I didn't follow my script. And the point is, I'm just echoing the importance of having a system now. That's it. Happy to take any questions, but there may not be any. So thank you.
So Ryan, don't go anywhere. There are some questions. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you through you, Chair, and thanks, Ryan, for joining us this morning. It's not lost on us. I want to reassure you about the critical importance of this and the impacts on the development community. Absolutely. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. We know that this is really challenging for people with firms of all sizes. So, but I just wanted to be clear that, like, you've used the term frozen and development freeze and things of that nature. But I do want to be clear, at least on behalf of the City of Waterloo, we're continuing with our planning processes. When we have to put in a holding provision, we will do that. But there is still development happening. And I just think, it's really important. Clarity of language is really important with anything, but particularly in a situation like this. And when I've met with numerous developers and building consultants and that, we've answered specific questions they have. Yes, there is the water constraint issue, but there is still the ability to move ahead with, how complex planning is. There's the ability to continue to move ahead with the bulk of the planning processes. So I just want to make sure that there's not a question there. I just want to make sure you're aware that that's how us, and I believe my counterparts in other municipalities like Kitchener and Woolwich, I don't want to speak for them, but are proceeding.
So that could have started with a did you know, but did you want to respond, because it really wasn't a question?
I would like to, Chair Redmond, because this is the misinformation that is hard for the average person, including lending institutions, to figure out as I receive calls. And I can only talk on behalf of the projects that I manage, which is 2,500 units in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge. So direct firsthand knowledge, there is a development freeze. I completely disagree with that position. Development approvals are being processed at different stages. Official plans and zone changes can go with the holding symbol to the satisfaction of the regional municipality when water becomes available. So it's a partial approval, not a full approval. Site plan can get a registered site plan agreement and get it executed, like Ketis right here. He has a site plan agreement in the city of Waterloo. He can't get a building permit to move ahead. So while the development approvals can work up to a certain degree, the development approval process, which includes building permit issuance, is frozen. And I disagree 100% to say that we're issuing development permits. Show me where there's a new development permit being activated right now in the last 4 months. And there is nothing within my purview that says that you are proceeding with development approvals that are beyond a net neutral water.
So I don't want to get into an argument about this. I'm happy to talk to you offline, and I know we've met before. I forget your name, though. And if you want to meet with our planning staff, happy to do that. Because I don't think this is not going to be a helpful environment for debating the nuances of this.
So Councillor McCabe, thank you for that. If you want to take it offline and don't go anywhere, Ryan, we have other questions. But I do think it underscores that we need to keep having conversations. So clarity will come and focus will come with the more conversations. Councillor James.
Thank you through you, Chair. Ryan, thank you for coming in today. Ketis, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here. Ryan, I just want to, I guess, emphasize that something you said, and that was around kind of those smaller, you're a boutique agency, there is smaller developers and builders that are impacted. You briefly touched on the calls you're receiving and some of the financial, questions, and, would you be able to speak to kind of the financial, like that connection to this? We've heard a little bit, but what is the financial industry saying? What are you hearing in the conversations that you're having?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Chair. I've been in business for 2 years, and what's completely changed my mindset and how development works is dealing with the financial sides and the lending institutional side of land development. I spent 20 years in the public sector in Kitchener-Waterloo and the region, and this is an industry that we're just not closely tied to. And so what my experience has been is that now people who are investing in projects are coming in and they are saying, where and why should I continue to invest in this development proposal? These are all proposals coming in with applications that I run to get through the development approval process. Running concurrently is that you need to fund these projects through different methods. And so now the industries are calling, and institutions are calling, and just saying, we don't know if we want to lend money to development projects that have undefined timelines with a permit process, because that costs money. And that money and resource can be put in other markets that can move and make a return on the investment. So what I can share with you without sharing the institutions' names, these are on the smaller scale of projects that need funding to do 4plexes, to do 6plexes, to do 10plexes. All the gentle density projects that you want are the ones that are being right now at greatest risk, which have the lowest impact. My biggest development project that I have right now, 1,400 units in Kitchener, is on hold. So that means no activity on a project that can phase in 1,400 units over time. So that's just a snapshot. Happy to talk to you offline about more of the specifics, but it gives you a snapshot of people are now reaching out to me on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Ryan.
Councillor Ivanovich.
Thank you very much, Ryan, and thank you to you and all the delegations that have come in today. And there's no question that the situation that we're in is providing some challenging times for everyone. And I know for myself, and I believe everyone sitting around the Regional Council Horseshoe, there's a commitment to address this, both with some of the motions and reports that are here today, and those that have come before us, and those that will follow. I guess just building on your point, and I do hear your concern around moving forward with projects. I mean, there are some nuances in terms of clearly what you're looking for is a return to the norm where building permits get processed as part of the process and move forward. And that's where we all want to get to. I do know that, area municipalities continue to issue building permits for things that don't increase water capacity, finishing a basement, a home addition, things like that. So some of that stuff is happening. It's the larger projects that obviously are a concern. I guess my question to you is, going back to a motion that regional council passed previously and staff at the region and the area municipalities are working on, and that's getting to an environment where capacity can allow projects to continue to move forward. How important is that? Taking that risk management based approach to the industry in terms of moving things forward and not seeing many things come to a halt as you're speaking to right now.
Ryan?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mayor. I'd frame it this way. That original recommendation for the 50-50 sharing between capacity allocation for development and resiliency buffer is a very fair model. It's fair. What's unfair is about the way this has all unfolded to everyone, the amount of working hours that you have to invest in this, the amount of time it's taken away from other projects. But this is one of the biggest economic issues in Waterloo Region's history, I believe that. And so, Mayor Urbanovich, I think that is a path forward. I think with a tiering in and a phasing of a resiliency buffer, you can activate development now. And this sends the message to industry that you are able to move ahead with some forms of projects. And so leave it to it, and I'm going to put Rod on the spot for a second, is I provide updates weekly, monthly. I reach out to all the area municipality planning heads, and I try to stay in touch to the best of my ability and be the squeaky wheel. And what I hope to be encouraged by, Mayor, to answer your question, is that this is the most important issue, and that's why I'm here today, to get some boundaries and criteria in place.
Councillor Vranovich?
Oh, and I certainly don't disagree with you that this is an absolutely critical issue. I mean, it's part of the reason why, for the first time in my memory, other than maybe some special meetings during COVID, that we actually have set aside on a monthly basis a whole set of meetings to clearly focus on this issue. Just building on that, because one of the things that we've heard is, in the fullness of time, we're talking about thousands of jobs that potentially are impacting our community, but it doesn't happen overnight, because as we know, there's a lot of construction projects that are currently being finished in our region, some that have had the green light from before and potentially are starting, but the issue becomes, as we go along, there's different people involved in different parts of the process. So you sort of start with, those that do the grading, and then you get to the folks that, do the excavating, and then you get to the folks that, pour the like the foundational concrete, and eventually you get to the people that do the drywall and the painting and the floors and so on. And so, while it may not be felt right away, there are people early in the process that'll start getting impacted sooner. And I think part of the problem, and this is what I've heard from the industry, and I'd like you to confirm or clarify this, is that, as some of those folks potentially start losing work, they will start going elsewhere, and the challenge will be getting those skilled trades back into the community. I'm wondering if you can speak to that.
Ryan?
I can share with you firsthand knowledge that I received to answer that question, Mayor. There's consulting firms that their workload has dropped anywhere from 50 to 80% on the consulting side, so that's immediate. I can confirm to you that in terms of some of the larger construction companies, as they finish off their jobs right now, there is no work in the fall, and they have over 100 to 200 people on staff. And if there's no work here, what do you do? There will be an out-migration of people to follow work. There's other markets that are growing, and I can confirm to you that this will have a legacy impact if we don't get construction back to some degree. The housing side of things, you're talking about personal finances. I was at a finance event last night, and some people can't get their duplex severed. They put their entire life savings to do this. And so it's more than what we first think. The impacts are being felt now, and they will intensify and amplify over time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in today and for all the delegations. I guess I'll just talk and see if my question comes out. Maybe a little like you, I'll go off. I won't. I don't have a script. So we've got a number of projects in the township that one of them, they've been working on it for 10 years. So that's sort of in the queue. And I guess what I'm wondering and what I struggle with, because we can use holding provisions, we could accept other applications and go through the process, put a hold on it. But at what point does a developer need to know that you're going to have water by a certain date? Do you see where I'm going with that question? Yeah.
So that's a bit of a hypothetical. They tell every politician never to answer, but Ryan, if you want to be intrepid and try to answer that, go ahead.
I will do my best. And that's a very clear question. I think what caught everyone by surprise was, and I'm sorry to use this word, but it is a freeze. The freeze of approvals has caught everyone by surprise. And so up until that point, all the project financing has already been approved. Up until that point, all the development approval plans are on the way. And then you're at the tail end of the process, which is the most impactful. And this is why the urgency is happening right now, the people that are going through the process. And so you need to know from day one what's available. Anyone right now may not choose to build in Waterloo region until there's a clear path in place. So you just lost that next wave of investment cycles, but the people who are doing it now are scrambling. They're trying to get new financing. And there's a condo collapse that happened as well. So all the projects that were on condominium side of things, for many people, there weren't the sales to meet the market demand and the condo market collapsed. Then you see a rise in rental. And you do see this in your metrics in the CMHC reports. And so this is good. This is healthy for the market. And then it freezes again. And so in a long-winded way, not as direct to answer the question with a yes or no, is that you need to know immediately if you have access to services. And that is the requirement of applicable law for a building permit. Do you have service? So you can take it all the way up to building permit. And then at that stage, they'll decide, is it applicable law and do you have access to services? So you can phase it in, Mayor, you can phase it in to a certain degree, but this is why I'm saying you need to have a milestone so that people can time their investments, time their properties, and say in 6 months' time, if more water is coming on and they're going to allow a next block of allocation, then they can finish off their project. But right now, there's some people in some really compromised positions.
Councillor Shantz, do you have a follow-up?
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. I know I've seen that too. So really, what you're saying, I think what you're saying is that we really very quickly need to have an answer to how much capacity we are going to be able to release in the short term to service projects that are in the queue. Is that a fair assessment of what you're telling us?
I wish I could have encapsulated it that way. That's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Those are all the questions.
Chair, sorry, my eScribe's not working for me to log in. Can I ask a question?
Ryan, we have one more question. Councillor Gowan.
Okay, thank you.
So coming from 20 plus years in the financial industry, looking at the developer side, but also looking at the customer side, who's buying your units. Have you heard anything from that? Because I know that stretching out building permits and things like that, and the closing dates on those units, like I think you said you had some that are paused at the moment, and if you have people that have purchased that those units, approvals only last so long. when it comes to the construction side of things. So have you heard from any of your clients whether that is affecting them at the same time?
Ryan, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I wish I had more to answer on that. All my clients are purpose-built rental developers and builders or homeowners. That market is different than the condominium market, so I don't know about the closing dates. But what I do know, to your point, is that an active building permit stays live for 6 months. Site plan approval stays live for 2 years. And there is timelines, and I'm sure the municipalities would allow for some flexibility given the current context of what's happening. But I can't answer that question on the customer side. It's the ownership side and development side that I feel directly, and it's very difficult right now.
Okay, I'd love to chat with you too offline.
Okay, thank you.
So Ryan, I'm now going to say that's the end of the questions, so thank you very much. You can return to your seat.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Look forward to the next steps, and sorry if I came across as combative, but it's coming from a good place. Thank you.
So Councillor Liggett, I just want to confirm you can hear us? Okay. Thank you. Colleagues, the next agenda item is a report on drinking water summary report. I'll now call on Ken Brothers, Interim Commissioner of Water and Wastewater, to speak to the report.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. Regional Council. Today we're seeking Council endorsement of the region's 2025 Drinking Water Summary Report. This report is an annual regulatory obligation under the Safe Drinking Water Act that requires the operating authority, water utility, to notify the system owner, which is you, Council, through an annual drinking water summary report. The summary report details the compliance summary of our 19 drinking water systems, summarizes any non-compliance identified, outlines water quality and flow rates, reports on the annual top management review, and any deficiencies and improvements made. It reports on infrastructure maintenance plan and highlights with any of the necessary changes. This report needs to be endorsed by Council and posted on the region's website no later than March 31st of this year. So at this point, I'll pass this over to Director Shaw, who will highlight the details of the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Brothers. The 2025 Drinking Water Summary Report, which is attached to the report in Appendix A, provides a detailed summary of 17 of the 19 inspections that were carried out by the MECP in 2025. The final 2 inspections were carried out in February of 2026, and the final reports received after the 2025 summary report was finalized. This is typical each year with the MECP inspection cycle, running April 1st to March 31st each year. As a total, though, 15 of 19 systems inspected received a 100% compliance score. 4 of the 19 systems inspected had a total of 9 non-compliances identified during the inspections. I want to point out that in light of the water capacity constraint identified in the Mannheim service area, it is important to note that the municipal drinking water supplied by the region of Waterloo continues to meet the necessary requirements under the Safe Drinking Water Act, as can be seen in the 2025 summary report. This report also reports back on the requirements for staff to hold an annual top management review of the drinking water quality management system. That occurred on November 25th, 2025. The management review is intended to provide evidence of continued endorsement and commitment to the quality management system from top management. Non-compliance issues are discussed along with corresponding corrective and preventative actions. The drinking water quality management system also requires that the operational plan document a summary and monitor the effectiveness of infrastructure maintenance, rehabilitation, and renewal programs and provide updates to the owner. That is laid out in detail in the report in Appendix A. If there's any questions, I've also got Ryan Snyder here as well in the audience, the Manager of Water Operations. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hunick, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Brothers and Ms. Shaw. In regard to the 9 non-compliance issues and corrective actions taken, which seemed quite minimal to me in a good way, I'm just wondering, do we have data as to whether or not that's comparable to other municipalities? Are we having more non-compliance issues, less non-compliance issues?
So through the chair, my understanding is we have less in 2025 than we did in the previous year. We also have a higher average compliance score than the average across Ontario. It's higher. We're just waiting on those final numbers to be tabulated. But yes, 9 is considered good, I would say. Some of them are administrative, like logbook entries or or continuous monitoring, a little blip in continuous monitoring. So it's those types of non-compliances.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Hunick, would you like to move the recommendations?
Sure, I can do that.
And a seconder, seconded by Councillor Wolf. This is good news, and I see that the water team is behind you as always, so good work, team. So I'll ask you now to use your e-scribe to vote on the motion before us, which deals with the 2025 Drinking Water Summary Report. Colleagues, that is carried unanimously, so thank you, and that is a good news report. And again, kudos to our team for staying on top of things. The next report is a water capacity constraint interim risk management approach update. And again, I will look to Ken Brothers, Interim Commissioner of Water and Wastewater, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. Well, this is the report, I guess, is a very important stage moving forward. I think we've all been waiting for this opportunity to advance the thinking on this. So the purpose of this report is to provide Council with an update further to the motion passed on January 28th of this year on the development of an interim risk management framework that, once completed, will identify the necessary operational thresholds and risk-based targets that must be met to allow stage development to proceed. I'll pass this over to Director Shaw to highlight some details of the report.
Amy, are you on first, or is it Nicole?
No, it's me. I'm going to introduce Nicole. So yes, thank you through the chair for having us here today. Today we are here to give Council an update on the amount of work that's been going on in the background since January. I am going to call up Nicole Cepeda, who you've all met before. She's a senior engineer in the Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Management Group, who's going to walk us through the presentation on the interim risk management framework update. So Nicole.
Thank you, Amy. And good morning, Council. Thank you for having Ryan and I here to provide an update on the interim risk management framework. Next slide, please. As we are all aware, there has been a water capacity constraint identified for the Mannheim service area, which supplies drinking water to Kitchener, Waterloo, and parts of Cambridge, Woolwich, and Wilmot. Staff are working diligently to address this constraint. Further to the request from Council, one of the key components of this work is to look at an interim risk management framework to support decision-making with respect to water servicing for growth. Next slide, please. The purpose of this presentation is to share an update based on the information that is currently available. I would like to highlight that work is ongoing and information is expected to be refined as further progress is made. A preliminary review was completed of forecasted development and anticipated new water supply. The review considered the timing and expected flow rates associated with both development and the new supply. This review allows for a preliminary comparison to determine when it is expected that sustainable operations and operational resiliency could be restored. A focus was placed on the time period from 2026 to 2028, as there is a higher level of confidence for this timeframe. Further, we know based on current demands and available capacity, this also represents a time period when the local groundwater aquifers are more likely to be under additional stress based on extended durations for peaking the supply sources. In parallel with this preliminary review, an interim risk management framework study has also been initiated, which I will speak more to later in the presentation. Next slide, please, and I'll pass the presentation over to Ryan.
So it's been identified that there is a need to understand the timing of future developments to better understand how much water is needed and when. While understanding the timing of development is an important consideration in understanding growth, it is important to note that it is not the only factor that influences growth. Should we rely solely on the population from new construction, we miss other factors which are significant drivers of population change, especially within the Mannheim service area. The timing of new construction is relatively easy to track once a building permit has been issued. We've had conversations with our area and municipal planners and the development stakeholder groups, and there's alignment on the average timing of construction between when a permit is issued and when construction completes. Building completions represent the visible growth. We see construction happening, we see the people moving into their homes. However, it's just the one factor that influences growth. To get an accurate representation of the anticipated growth over the next few years, we have to look at the additional factors that impact growth, and there's a few key drivers here. The growth of multi-generational families. We are seeing a rise of an increased number of people living under one roof together. This means that without any new construction, we are seeing additional population within our region. Housing turnover. We're seeing older residents downsizing, making room for new families. Old homes are shifting occupancy from 2 empty nesters to a family of 4. Student population fluctuations. Our 3 post-secondary institutions are located within the Mannheim service area, and over the past 5 years, we've seen a significant swing in those student populations. You can go to the next slide. To better account for the full picture of growth that is anticipated to occur in the Mannheim service area, we have prepared a preliminary forecast for the Mannheim service area from 2025 to 2028. We have reliable information to inform the growth in 2025. We have information from the post-secondary institutions on their fall 2025 enrollments, and we know how many homes completed construction. For 2026 to 2028, we have relied on historical population growth as a proxy for anticipated growth in the future, for now. This assessment excluded student populations. As we know, given the recent federal policy announcements, we will not be seeing a significant growth of student populations, especially compared to the growth seen over the last 5 years. We see growth fluctuate up and down. This method incorporates the factors mentioned on the previous slide and provides an average growth rate we may see over the next few years. With the known market conditions across Ontario, the forecast as presented could be seen as optimistic. We have also initiated discussions with both the Planning-Focused Water Servicing Capacity Working Group and the Water Supply Developer Stakeholder Group to better understand the growth over the next few years. Both groups identified concerns with assessing growth based on estimating the timing of future developments. We are exploring the various temporal lenses we can apply to better understand the anticipated growth over the next few years. We anticipate developing a more refined forecast to accompany the finalized risk-based assessment. I also want to highlight that within the appendix of the report, you will find a summary of the updated 2025 planning application data within the Mannheim service area. We are continuing to work with our area municipal partners to refine the data. As information is refined and updated, we'll be sure to update Council. We can go to the next slide, and I'll pass it back to Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. New water supply solutions are needed to sustainably operate the water system, restore operational resiliency, and support growth. A preliminary list of projects that can provide sustainable water supply capacity has been developed, and work is ongoing through the Technical Focused Water Servicing Capacity Working Group to confirm short and medium-term opportunities. This table provides an overview of the forecasted new water supply anticipated between 2026 and 2028. All of these projects combined represent new water supply capacity of up to approximately 350 liters per second. Next slide, please. The forecasted development timing was translated into anticipated water demands. The first row of this table provides an overview of these water demands expressed as average day demands. The second row provides an overview of the total sustainable water supply capacity anticipated based on the preliminary list of projects for new water supply. The total sustainable water supply capacity is a representation of what the system could produce on an ongoing basis if everything was online. As discussed in previous presentations to Council, it is impossible to keep all facilities running nonstop. Planned and unplanned shutdowns are a reality of operating a water system. The available sustainable water supply capacity represents what the system could produce when the minimum operational resiliency is considered. This is equal to 80% of the total sustainable water supply capacity. To operate sustainably and restore operational resiliency, the available sustainable water supply capacity should be greater than the average day demands. Based on the anticipated new water supply capacity, sustainable operations and the operational resiliency are not expected to be restored until 2027. Next slide, please. This slide presents the information from the previous slide in a more visual way. All of the data shown is the same, but we can see more clearly how the forecasted supply and demand compare to each other. Green represents the average day demands, light blue represents the total sustainable water supply capacity, and dark blue represents the available sustainable water supply capacity. When looking at the information this way, the objective remains the same. The available sustainable water supply should be greater than the average day demands. When looking at this graph, this happens when the navy blue bar is greater than the green bar. As indicated in the previous slide, this is forecasted to occur in 2027. Next slide, please. An interim risk management framework study has been initiated to review how stage development could potentially proceed under certain risk-based conditions in the Mannheim service area. The focus is to look at how much water could potentially be made available to support growth while we work to fully restoring sustainable operations and operational resiliency. This path forward must look at opportunities to manage risks while protecting the existing drinking water system. There are many considerations for a risk management framework. In preliminary discussions, these have been categorized as 3 key themes: demand risk management, operational risk management, and supply risk management. Common questions that staff have heard from council, delegates, and the public include things like, do we need 20% operational resiliency right away, or could this be staged? Can we continue to peak our supply wells to support growth? And what role does water efficiency and conservation play? This study is collecting data and information to answer questions like these using an evidence-based approach to assess risk and potential mitigation measures. It is important to note that the interim risk management framework study will not be assessing how water would be allocated to development. Preliminary discussions are underway with the planning-focused water servicing capacity working group to discuss how potential water capacity for growth could be allocated and the roles in allocations. As these discussions progress, we anticipate further discussions with other working groups. Next slide, please. The project team for the interim risk management framework study is meeting weekly to progress this work. The study will be leveraging outcomes from ongoing initiatives and working groups to streamline efforts. Where necessary, supporting studies by technical experts have also been initiated. For example, a study by technical experts is now in progress to assess the risks of continuing to operate the drinking water wells at their peak flow rates to potentially support stage development. The targeted completion for the interim risk management framework study is May 2026, which is considered to be an aggressive timeline based on the amount of work that is needed to needs to be completed to support this critical risk-based decision-making. While all efforts will be made to expedite this work, additional time may be required for some technical components. If the work is not fully completed by May 2026, region staff will report back with an interim update on progress and an updated timeline for completion. Staff understand the importance of this work. We are working diligently to expedite wherever feasible. Thank you for providing the opportunity to bring this update forward to Council today.
Thank you very much. Don't go anywhere. We've got lots of questions. Councilor Vrmanovich.
Thank you very much, and thank you to staff for the presentation. I guess a couple questions to start off with, and I may have more later. When we go back to the population, we only go back to 2024, and I'm wondering if we should actually go back farther so that we actually see what the trend line has been. it may actually be helpful, and quite frankly, information that, would potentially become part of the kind of report that Councillor Craig is asking for later in today's meeting. But seeing what those population numbers have been, so that we understand how they relate to sort of water in that time period, and I'm thinking, maybe a 10-year trend would make sense here. And in particular, I also think that we should, I understand that you didn't include the student numbers, but I actually think it would be good to see them, because there were things that started changing with student numbers around 2016, 17, 18, somewhere in that time period. I think we can see them go up, and now we know that they've gone down significantly. And I raise that because surely as we look at this, the fact that one of our institutions is seeing, 25,000 less students, that's impacting, usage both at the facilities and no doubt residentially in our community. So I think that needs to be better understood, so that we we factor it in the long run. So is that data that could be provided in a subsequent report?
Ryan, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, through the chair, we absolutely can provide that. I believe the January report included information going back to 2020, but we can go back 10 years. We can separate out students and regular population and provide that growth out to 2028.
Okay, thank you for that. And then the second question is just on this, as we look at the risk-based approach, one of the things that I think may merit consideration, and I believe it is being discussed by the working group, is this notion of looking at servicing at occupancy versus servicing at building permit in order to allow projects to proceed. Because we know there will be projects, like many of these projects will take 2 to 3 years to be constructed. And so, if the servicing is required at building permit stage, that's a problem. But if in terms of holding things up, but if it's really required at occupancy permit, that would change things quite dramatically. And so I guess I just want to encourage staff to really be looking at that going forward, because it's very different than building a single family home, for example, which could be up in a few months. And so I'm just wondering if there's any initial thinking around that.
So it looks like Nicole is willing to answer that, and I'll put you back in the queue, Councillor Banovich, after this.
Yep, thank you.
Through the chair, thank you for that feedback. I think it is a really important consideration, and there's 2 streams of work that are happening so that we can expedite this work as quickly as possible. So there is the interim risk management framework study, which is really trying to answer the question of how much capacity could be made available, like from a water capacity perspective, to support staged development. And then there's this question of how does that capacity get allocated to the development. And through the work that's ongoing with the planning focused water servicing capacity working group, I think part of what you've highlighted might be covered under that, but regardless, those 2 initiatives are working closely together to share information and to make sure that we're covering off those considerations.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Hunick.
Thank you, Chair Redmond. For the benefit of everyone here, I want to reiterate that the regional water team and the working groups are working really, really, really hard. I understand that the timelines might not be ideal for the development industry, and there are repercussions of that, but I don't know how we encourage them to work harder or faster when they're going as fast as they can. And until now, here's my question, which I'm going to put into the room and have no idea who's going to answer it. Until now, it kind of seems as though water protection advocates are against the development industry and vice versa. And the truth of the matter is, for the vitality of Waterloo region, we need the development industry to be on side, and we need the water to serve everyone who lives and works and plays here. So I'm just wondering if anybody has any wisdom as to how do we get everyone on side with each other, knowing that water matters and ongoing development matters.
I volunteered Ken to take that.
Thank you for that, Chair Redmond. I mean, that's a great question because there's two very important groups here. The development community, the jobs, and so forth. And
we're not actually two groups. We're all humans who need water and economic vitality.
Yes, and I was getting to that.
Sorry.
There's a population that we serve, that we need to ensure that there's a sustainable, ongoing water supply. Many of the working groups that we're currently involved with, and I believe there's 9 or 10 active groups, and certainly from the water perspective, we've got staff involved with 6 of them that are meeting weekly with development community, with stakeholders, with local area municipalities, talking about these very issues. And we understand the pressure points here, that there's inherent conflict of growth that's demanding more water supply, and staff's position or role really is the protection of the public in terms of sustaining that water supply. The accountability is with staff. We are working our way through this, and we have upcoming technical working groups that we are planning to meet with the entire development and business community, stakeholders that we have, to talk about the technical aspects and the challenges that we have.
Yes.
And this is coming forward. As an example, we're looking at how come it takes so long to develop a new source of supply? How come it takes so long to get a new well, as an example? And this type of information, I think, needs to be more broadly shared with the development community and other stakeholders, talking about MOE requirements, timelines, work required to expand the existing wells that we have. I think these are the types of information that could put perspective in terms of the challenges on staff's side, on the region side, so that the development community is better informed about what our challenges are, and maybe collectively we can, understanding the challenges on both sides, how we can move forward to solicit feedback from them to fully understand how we might be able to accelerate that, as an example. So I think, as staff have already mentioned this morning, we understand the challenges that are here, and we're working as fast as we can, but we want to be more inclusive in terms of sharing the technical aspects of this with the development community and with the area municipal stakeholders in moving forward, talking about what it is that we're going to do, and position the capacity issue in the context of development and other things that we can do. Lastly, Chair, Nicole mentioned this. This is really kind of working towards the risk-based assessment that's coming forward. Our previous speaker talked about that this morning, how important that aspect is. This is the body of work that we really have to work forward to and feed with good information coming from the stakeholder groups to that study coming forward. That sets the framework for this. And inherently, we'll be talking about the resiliency and those other factors that were currently in play for the protection of the public to ensure that we can work through this as quickly as we can. We fully appreciate the urgency that's at play here. So, sorry if I colored outside the lines here a little bit, Chair, but I thought I'd just offer some perspectives on what I'm hearing from staff here at the region, what I'm hearing from area municipality participants in the task forces, and certainly we're hearing that message from developers, and we're fully sensitized to the issues at hand here.
Thank you, Mr. Brothers, for explaining all of that for the benefit of all of us. I just think moving forward, it's really important. Whatever's aspect of this challenge is more important to you, we refrain from advocating in opposition to one another and continue to solve the problem. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Rodriguez.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks for the update presentation. Pardon me. A couple of quick questions to start building on the delegation, some of the delegations that we had and the information you shared. The report mentions, I think there's about 7,200 units that had building permits approved last year. Could you confirm the status of those and how things are proceeding in that specific bucket?
So through the chair, the 7,000 permits were issued before 2025. Some of them Developments like 30 Francis have been under construction for quite some time. Our understanding is they are proceeding. We would see them develop up to 2028. Some of the permits were issued late in 2025 and will take a few years to develop, but we see those proceeding to occupancy.
Okay, that's great clarity. So those will go to occupancy. And then I think there was again, this builds on the February report that your team brought forward. We heard about, you know, the plexes, right? The infill development. And those opportunities where things proceed as of right. There's no severance, there's no site plan, there's no variance. Everything just goes straight to building permit. Could you comment on those types of building permits and understand that we don't issue those permits, just trying to understand the region's role on those really small scale developments? Because I think that's a really important question.
It may be a planning question. I see Danielle getting up to volunteer to come and address that. No. Danielle's calling a friend.
Through the chair, thanks for the question, Councillor Rodriguez. The area municipalities are responsible for the issuance of building permits, so the region is working closely with the area municipalities to make sure that they have the information that they need to process building permits.
But hypothetically, from a regional perspective, do they, like, if they buy a single detached house and they build a fourplex as of right, are they are we intervening from a water, like, do we intervene on the water side?
Through the chair, so only if a regional Form 1 is required. Otherwise, there's no planning process that the region is involved in that we're providing input or comments.
And would a Form 1 be required most of the time?
Through the chair, I'll look to Amy to comment on whether Form 1s are required for those types of development.
So through the chair, there could be a requirement for Form 1 if they're upsizing the infrastructure, like the size of the pipe to the property, or if you're connecting a new pipe to the system, to the distribution system. So I don't know the specifics of.
So case by case?
Case by case, yes.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep back in.
Thank you. Councillor Gowing.
Thanks, Chair. Just to comment on Councillor Hunick's comment and question, it's a balance that we have to find between everyone, between the water protection and the development. So it's a balance is the proper term that we should be using. But my question more is around looking at the capacity issues that we have, and even into 2028 when we start to bring on more capacity within our infrastructure, it seems we're still not going to have enough. We're still not going to have enough water, because I know that once we start to develop and grow, populations are going to continue to grow. So there's going to be still more demand at that point. I'm going to throw it out there. Have we considered, even because after doing all my research, talking with retired councillors that sat around this table years ago, and have we looked at the feasibility of having a pipeline?
Do you want to take this one?
So through the chair. So we do have the ongoing work for the water supply strategy update, where we're looking at a range of possible options for the community. This includes new groundwater supply sources, it includes water reuse, it includes things like a potential Lake Erie connection. So it is being reviewed right now as part of that project in terms of expediting it or the potential for bringing it forward. It's something that could potentially be discussed. However, it does take time for something like that to be implemented, and currently the estimates are about 20 years, would be a pretty aggressive timeline for the amount of planning and construction that would need to happen for that. But that being said, given our circumstances, if there's further discussion around that, then that would be considered into the water supply strategy update ongoing work.
Councillor Gowing, do you have another question?
It's more of a follow-up on this. So looking at that, and it's unfortunate that this information wasn't available back 20 years when they started talking about it, because it would be online now. So my question to everyone is, should we be looking at a pipeline reserve like we did with the ION, just to make sure that we are ready if, in fact, this is the way we need to go, because we shouldn't be reactive, we need to be proactive. And I've said this many times, I don't like to react to things. So is that something that we should be looking at? I don't know who's going to answer that one, but.
Oh, Matthew's queuing in, and then Ken.
Sure. Through you, Chair. I think, I mean, to rephrase what Nicole was saying, I think the water supply strategy will tell us next year what is the right phasing for that. What I understand from Nicole and the team is we have 15 to 20 years with the appropriate infrastructure investments, a lot of them that were identified in the preliminary list in January. With all these investments, we have 15 to 20 years of capacity based on growth trends. We know pipeline is a long-term investment. I think the water supply strategy update will be a really important moment next year to be able to tell us, should we start engaging investing in this with the appropriate partners and build that long-term project. That will come next year. But for now, we do have 15 to 20 years of capacity to support growth, assuming we do all the infrastructure investments that are required to be able to access, treat, and distribute that water.
Can I just have one quick comment on that?
One real quick.
Okay. So if we have capacity for the next 15 years, it takes 20 years to build a pipeline. If that's the case, I think we should be looking at that now so that we're not in this space 15 years from now, and then it's an additional 20. I'm just throw that out there.
Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, Chair. Just to jump on to Councillor Gowing's thing, we did look at this 20 years ago. I was actually on council when we looked on it. And it was thought that the most economic and feasible was the groundwater solution. And it does work for us. Now, I've talked to a few provincial people about the pipeline to Lake Erie. Lake Erie is one of the shallowest Great Lakes we have. A lot of people are drawing from it. I have concerns about whether we're draining it. But the province of people I spoke to said we would go in with Guelph, Brantford, and other areas together to create a pipeline. Because when we looked at it 20 years ago, we were only looking at the region developing it. And the cost was astronomical then. But if we work at, so that's something that we in the near future, should start to discuss with our partners. The other thing is, Councillor Rodriguez was talking about the fourplexes and that were built on single-family homes and the water constraints and how it doesn't come through the system and we don't see it, and so we don't up the water usage. And maybe we need to talk to the municipalities, all of us work together and say, that does have to be logged. We have to have that information so that we don't come to this situation again. But what I really wanted, my initial reason for putting my hand up is slide number 6. And it says 30 liters per second for 2026 for the Wilmont, but we're already doing that right now. Are you talking an additional 30? Because if we're doing it right now, it doesn't work towards the solution of the problem. So are we going to 60? And can we confirm, and this is essential, can we confirm that water in Wilmont is there? Because we've talked about the dry wells, the dry ponds. So it looks like they may have a similar water issue. And if we don't find that information out first, we're going to be right back here starting from scratch. So we need that information as soon as possible. And I heard it was supposed to come to the March meeting. It's now been deferred to April. So I will again be deferring that motion to April until we have that information. But so can you confirm, are you going to 60 then? Because you're already using 30 right now. So to me, that's not an increase.
So Councillor Foxton, Nicole's going to start and Ken's going to do backup.
Okay.
Through the chair, that's a great question, and I know that there's been some confusion around that 30 liters per second and what that means. So to clarify, what is happening right now is part of a long-term operational test to confirm the sustainable amount that can be produced from those wells, and we do not account for that water in any type of long-term planning process. So when we talk about the amount of water that's available for development, for example, there's never the inclusion of that 30 liters per second. So the first line there of saying the 30 liters per second available in 2026, That's an acknowledgement of it would transition from something that is temporary and that is not relied on for development, and saying that we would make that available for development long term. And there's a note on that table as well that is pending council approval.
Ken thought you did great, and he doesn't need to do backup. Councillor Foxton, any further questions?
No, I'm just hopeful that, but I think it's essential that we have good information to make good decisions.
I think we're in violent agreement with that unanimously. And I would also point out that the pipeline concept has been around for a very long time, and maybe at some future date we should talk about what has been put in place in the last 20 years, because it's not like nothing's been done. It's just we don't have a pipeline coming into Cambridge yet. So I know there has been investments made by successive governments. Councillor Schatz.
Thank you. Thank you, staff, for all the work you're doing. I know, I think the word complex was used once already this morning. I know it's very complex and there's a lot of pieces. So when I say this, don't take it as adding to your workload. It's just, that's not a good way to start, is it? But it's sort of looking forward and looking back at the same time. So there are a number of different reasons that are complex that we are where we are today. And you are looking at the data today, and you're doing some modeling and that kind of thing to figure out how we deal with the situation today. While you're doing that, without making a lot of extra work, but are you also keeping in mind how that modeling can be used in the future? Because in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, we're still going, excuse me, as water users, we're still going to need to know how we can allocate water to our developers. So can you just speak to how what you're doing today will help us in the future?
Through the chair. Yes, that's an excellent question, and I can speak to the different initiatives and how we really are working towards having all of them work together. So we're currently working on the interim risk management framework study, and while we're using today as a baseline of understanding, we're not just looking at what we need today, we're looking at what we need for the next 5 years. We want to know how are we transitioning from where we are now to where we could potentially support staged development while we work to restore sustainable operation and operational resiliency. We also have initiatives ongoing to update our annual water and wastewater monitoring report, which will give us a mechanism on an annual basis to look forward on an ongoing basis, as we've done in the past, for where we're at with the progress of development and what is needed in what I'm going to call a medium-term frame. So a 5 to 10-year time frame is typically, or 10-year time frame, I guess, is more accurate for that reporting. And then we also have the water supply strategy update that's ongoing to look at the water supply needs through to 2051. So there are several moving parts, and each of them are intended to focus on a different time frame more specifically, but they all work together, and staff are all working together to ensure that this information is shared between all of these initiatives and that it all dovetails together.
Thank you. If I can just process that a little bit more. The piece that really twigged this for me was the population and the changing demographics and the changing population, because that's something that is maybe in some ways a little harder to predict than just straight increases in population, where we're looking at students increasing number of students decreasing, adding fourplexes and ADUs. And so is your modeling flexible enough to sort of input some different parameters that you can say, if this, then that, if something else, then this is what it'll look like?
Through the chair. So what I can speak to is the discussion so far for the interim risk management framework. We have identified the need for As we move forward, we will need to have that monitoring and that assessment piece on an ongoing basis to look at the mitigation strategies and to look if we need to make adaptations as circumstances change. And that's for that one piece, that's the near term, but it can also speak to the water supply strategy update as well. That's a very important part of that project as well, is how can we be adaptive, because we want to make sure that we have the infrastructure in place for when we need it, but we also don't want to invest too early and then cause undue financial hardship. So that check-in and that monitoring is very important.
Thank you. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And again, as all others have said, thank you so much for the ongoing work that you're all doing. And of course, welcome as well to our interim Commissioner of Water. I'm curious about the water or the table planning applications for 2025 in Appendix B. Particularly where it has a line that's registered plans of subdivision. How do we read that? Does that mean that as those are registered plans of subdivision that the water capacity is already secured, or just that they've been, like, what can we take from that?
Thank you for the question through the chair. I'll speak to the process, and then perhaps Nicole can speak to how they're treated in the water and wastewater monitoring report. But from the region's perspective, a registered lot showing up in that table is a lot that has went through the full planning process and is a lot that has been created and is able to be conveyed or sold to a developer. So it's went through the full planning process with typically only a building permit process to follow. They are tracked separately in our water and wastewater monitoring report, so I'll pass it over to Nicole to talk about how they're captured there.
But sorry, and when you say it's tracked separately, like, does that mean it's included or it's not included in this 34 liters per second?
Nicole's going to speak to that.
Is that, okay,
Or maybe Ryan.
Through the chair. So the 39 liters per second in the appendix is building permits issued but not occupied. In the annual water wastewater monitoring report, as it was tracked historically, we had something referred to as a committed capacity, and that was a reported number in the table that only accounted for development that went through a plan of subdivision process. The building permits issued not yet occupied are not included in that number. Where it would have been included is there is also a forecast of the expected water demand over the next 10 years, and that included all types of development. So there is a component that was covered there for this flow rate.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, so it's been forecasted, does that mean that development that is ready to go ahead in those registered plans of subdivision would be considered that the water supply is there? I mean, that's really the critical piece of that as far as I understand.
Through the chair, I might pass this to Rod to talk about the specific planning processes in terms of what development applications are requiring approvals and which ones are already going through. Because if it's required for an approval from the regional perspective, then it's not accounted for as like a reserved water capacity. But Rod, perhaps you could provide some clarification there.
So, and just before you answer, thanks, Nicole, like, because part of what, like, I'm also curious if, if that includes employment lands as well. Because, and I guess I'm confused about if the water's forecasted. It's really, if the water's forecasted, does that mean it's counted in that? I thought it was 34 liters, but did you say it's 39 liters? It's pretty small print. Like, is it included or not?
Rod, do you want to jump in?
Sure. All development takes place with the staging of infrastructure construction. So when somebody is designing a subdivision or an extension of the urban area, infrastructure is required in order to facilitate the actual occupancy of those of the lots or of the units that are constructed as part of that process. And that infrastructure includes water. If we look back to the, and I apologize for stepping a little bit back into history here, but when we look back into the policy framework that was put forward in the regional official plan back in 2022, that plan acknowledged that we needed to build additional water infrastructure in order to meet our population targets that were articulated to 2051. And in this particular situation, the building permits that have been issued but not yet occupied will require water that we are in the process of delivering, and I think the reason why we've got this capacity constraint in place right now is that we are moving very close to that development is going to be moving us very close to the actual capacity that we have in the system. And we are going to need to build more infrastructure, which is the project that we currently have underway in order to deliver water to all of the units in plans of subdivision and in the development forecast that you see in the table on Appendix A. That said,
just for clarity, I'm talking about Appendix B. Just to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
It's being put up on the screen.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So
okay.
The registered plans of subdivision are units where the region of Waterloo has signed servicing agreements, and that has allowed the plans of subdivision to be registered. So we will be providing water to those units.
And that includes the employment lands as well as residential? If there's a signed servicing agreement,
so
the water's allocated.
Yeah, so employment lands there's a nuance to employment lands, and that is that and Ryan here can correct me if I'm not articulating this correctly. The generally speaking, employment in the region of Waterloo is thought to be a derivative of the population. In other words, the water consumption of employees, of workers in the region of Waterloo are taken into account in the population figure for the region. And so typically, employers that don't consume large quantities of water are considered to be like the individuals working in those workplaces are not considered to be using more water than they do if they were to be working at home, for example. I would say, and this work will be part of the risk-based assessment. There is a difference between heavy water users and employers that use a lot of water by definition. So here I'm thinking about, the food industry. Breweries are perhaps the best case, where the product is actually water. So I think, we need to, the risk-based assessment is going to have to deal carefully with how we account for heavy water users in the employment sector. So does that help?
Ryan, do you want to weigh in at all, or is that's sufficient? Okay. Councillor McCabe, do you want to go back in the queue?
Yeah, I'll go back in the queue. Thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Just to add to the pipeline discussion and little thinking outside the box, we did have a constituent who suggested we look at Lake Huron through the Saugeen River connected to the Grand River. So just one more tool for us to look at. Thanks.
Nicole, do you want to comment?
Yes, through the chair. There has been extensive work that's been done in the past to look at potential water supply sources for the community long term. It did consider a connection to Lake Huron. One of the things that we need to be really cognizant of is called interbasin transfer. So because the Grand River ultimately flows into Lake Erie, we can't take from one lake and then discharge to another lake. And so that's why the recommendation ultimately was a Lake Erie connection for this community specifically.
Councillor Burvanovich.
Sorry, Chair Edmund, that was, I think, a legacy hand. Apologies.
No worries. Chantal, or Councillor Hunick.
Thank you. Sorry, I wasn't quite prepared to speak, but I'll do now. So I'm very conscious of the fact that, sorry, through the chair. I'm very conscious of the fact that Councillor Salonen is not here today. I know that she previously said that Wilmot Town Council was willing to give the 30 liters per second for a 1-year time frame, and I know that that's not really feasible, given that if we allocate the water once, it's allocated forever. So if we're voting on this today, I'm just wondering, it's pretty straightforward that right now Wilmot has the capacity for 30 liters per second, and I understand that. But what I don't understand is every municipality within our region is growing. So do we have projection data, or hopefully even more reliable than projection data, of how this may or may not limit Wilmot's capacity in 10 to 20 years?
So through the chair, thank you for the question, Councillor Hunick. We are going to be bringing back a fulsome report, and hopefully we can do that on the 8th. Our consultant is not available. He's out of country, so we're hoping to be able to bring back a fulsome report on that. I know some of the data was asked for to show the trends with the Wilmot wells as well. So Jeff is actively working on that with our consultant. I do know Jeff has responded to several questions from Councillor Rodriguez, and we sent those to all council. But we are looking into the history of the file. Again, a lot of the staff who are working on this now were not here in 2019, as you can probably imagine.
Sure.
So we're looking into the history of that, but we will bring back a fulsome report on Wilmot. And I don't think we're voting on the 30 liters per second today. So
Okay,
that's,
thank you.
we'll get you time.
I was also confused because people have been mentioning it, so that I didn't think we were, but then I got scared. Anyway, it's good. Thank you.
But to just answer your first point, yes, that's correct. If it's not a permanent allocation, then we will not be able to use that for growth. That's correct.
Thank you.
And with apologies, Councillor James, your name disappeared off the list.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Just first a quick comment just about the whole, when we say the Grand River, I'm so conscious because there are 40 other municipalities who do depend on the Grand River as well, that I don't think has come up in conversation, but it's something also to be mindful of as we mention things like using the Grand River and all of that. There's other municipalities that are dependent on this or that use it to some capacity as well. I do have a question for Ms. Shaw, and I know it's been a lot of technical questions. I haven't heard much from staff around the discussions, conversations, with your counterparts at the province. So not from the political perspective, but from a staff perspective. Can you just kind of speak to that? Because right now it's like you all are working on your own, and, I know you all are working hard, but what is that relationship in the conversations and how there's support there for what we're navigating right now?
Sure. Through the chair, thank you for the question. Yes, we have an excellent working relationship with the MECP. We've actually had 3 meetings with them already, one with the permissions group, one with the environmental assessment group, one with the permit to take water group. They've actually come in person here to 150 Frederick for some of the meetings. They've been excellent with being accommodating and offering to streamline technical reviews. They've offered suggestions with respect to the side stream pilot and how to move that forward quicker. And we have a fourth meeting that is being scheduled with the Source Water Protection Group. We keep in constant contact with the district office, Lisa Williamson at the district office, and we provide the updates as we do to council in the area municipalities. And so they're also available for questions that we have with these new projects that are coming online. So I would say it's a fruitful relationship right now, and they have openly said that if we have more questions, to reach out to them, and we'll set up meetings. So they've been great.
Thank you for that context. I think it's good to know before we get into narratives sometimes around us versus them, that you are working from a staff level together collaboratively, and they understand, and we all understand the importance of this. If possible, and just a small ask, when you're reporting or what have you, to try and include that a little bit more. I think that context is very important, especially from a public perspective as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. I'd like to go back to a comment, and I didn't write down the comment that Councillor Verbanovic made that precipitated this question, and it had to do with whether we assign water at the permit stage or at the occupancy stage. And my question is more related to the chief building officials, so I'm not sure if this is for Rod, but I know that our chief building officials are reluctant to approve a building permit unless they have water. I think that's a requirement on their license. So if we were to change that to at occupancy, is that even feasible?
I will bounce this over to Ken, but I think the one thing that I think is important to distinguish in the development or in the construction process is final water required for final occupancy and water required for fire protection. Because, during the construction process, water is required for fire, but I know that the status of that is somewhat different in terms of its demand, its implications for consumption. So I'm gonna bounce this over to Ken for the rest of the answer.
I can't really speak to in terms of the building permit and occupancy component because I'm not quite familiar with the local requirements, but certainly from a fire protection perspective, I mean, inherently the systems are designed with embedded fire protection. And we don't double or triple count fire protection flow rates. Once it's been designed and the reservoir capacity is there and the trunk systems are in place, by simply adding on some additional fire protection, it really doesn't take any more water from the system. The system is capable of delivering it. And each municipality will undertake its own hydraulic review for applications that are tendered, whether it be Kitchener or Waterloo, or as the case may be, in terms of subdivision extensions. But I would not normally see additional flow requirements be placed on fire protection for a system addition, if you will. Unless there's a change in the demand, say an industrial site, put a Michelin tire plant in as an example that would dramatically change the fire flow requirement, that's a completely different story. So if you're extending, if you will, the fire flow capacity has been designed for the area for more of the same, there's no additional capacity or flows that would arise from that. Back to the other, I'm not quite sure how to respond to your initial question in terms of building permit versus occupancy.
That's fine. Thank you for the context. My question wasn't really around fire flow, but I'll check with our building officials and ask them. Thanks.
Councillor Rodriguez.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So in the presentation, it spoke to by 2027 we'll be in a better state of things. We have a little bit of grace that there are projects underway for 2026 that construction can continue to some defined degree, but I would really hate to, I think we need to keep our eyes set on like the 2027 construction season and that next impact. And so could you maybe just speak to what decisions get made this year and early next year, and how we get ahead to some, based on this framework that we're talking about today? And if you don't have the answer today, that's fine, but perhaps when you come back in May, I think it's important for us to understand what, more specifically, what 2027 is going to look like.
Through the chair, that's a great comment. I'd like to take that back, and as we do the work through the interim risk management framework study, then we can better assess what some of those, I think it's the mitigation strategies, right, in terms of how are we managing uncertainty, what are the really important decisions to make sure that we're moving forward as we would like to, and I think that's a really important consideration that I'll be able to better answer in that next reporting.
Thanks, Nicole. And through the chair, just a question on the water supply strategy. So I totally understand there's been an immense body of work to date on this, but recognizing that it is, as we head into 2026, do you see any updates coming to council and any touch points on that project? Because again, I think this, is something that we might have seen earlier, and now that we're grappling with this challenge, just want to understand maybe when more information will become available and how we can, keep that process moving, recognizing it's separate but intrinsically aligned to what we're talking about today.
Through the chair, yes, the water supply strategy update, it has been progressing, but we have been leveraging staff and work from the water supply strategy work to support the ongoing work for the Mannheim service area water constraint. And so that's advantageous to us in that we're able to respond faster for the issue at hand. But it does mean that it has had some impact in terms of the schedule. So we are continuing to monitor that. We are hoping to have an update in terms of the shortlisted opportunities for the strategy in fall of 2026, but that schedule is still to be confirmed as we continue to navigate the current situation.
Thank you, Chair.
So I have 3 more speakers, and I'm going to suggest we move on. We have another report, and we have 2 motions before. So unless somebody has not spoken to this issue and has a question, please queue in. Otherwise, I'm going to take Councillors McCabe, Foxton, and Shantz, and then we're going to move on. So Councillor McCabe.
Thank you. Question about the risk management, the risk assessment work that's underway. I'm curious about when this will provide if this will provide an indication about the accuracy of the 20% operational resiliency target that was identified in the Agile report. And I guess my part of a follow-up to that is that, and if so, is that operational resiliency target, is there a potential that it might be adjusted to allow shovel-ready projects to proceed?
So through the chair, the recommendation for the 20% operational resiliency target is not being revisited in terms of is that the right operational resiliency that we should have. The work that's being done though is to look at could we operate in an interim state where perhaps there's less than 20% operational resiliency. So we looked at the forecast for new water supply projects and growth, and we said that until 2027, we don't anticipate that the operational resiliency and sustainable operations is going to be fully restored. So in the meantime, when it's not fully restored, could we make do with less for operational resiliency? So the interim risk management framework study is intended to answer that type of question, but it doesn't call into question the fact that we still need the 20% operational resiliency to provide a reliable water supply to the community long term.
Okay, thank you for that. And then my other question is around water conservation methods. And my understanding or expectation, and certainly what I've heard from people in the development community who have expertise around this, is that that improved water conservation methods would free up or could free up some demand on the system and potentially enable some water capacity to be redistributed or reduced, possibly in the case of new developments. And, we don't want to catch anyone, like including the public, particularly residents, off guard about, potential restrictions that we may have to put in place. So I'm just curious, I'm just curious if there's been any progress on updating water conservation methods for the coming summer, and what education, outreach, and potentially enforcement plans are being developed.
Amy, are you going to weigh in?
I'll take it. So through the chair, we do have the working group that has kicked off with respect to looking at the conservation policy options, the one that was through the motion to come back by June with those requirements. So I think there was 2 meetings that have already happened. One was this week with that group, with the recommended participants that were in there. We're also looking at potential bylaw changes, options, so that'll all be coming back as an outcome of that work that's being done by that group. I don't have any changes proposed as of right now with respect to our bylaw, but we will be coming forth with some recommendations on that.
Okay, I realize I was the one who tabled the motion and said to report back in June. I'm concerned now that that's just too long of a time. So, and I know everyone's really busy because June summer will be upon us by then, right? And that doesn't give us any time for education, communication, et cetera. And I know everyone's really busy, but it would be much more advantageous for everyone if there were information or an update, even an interim update by, I'd say April, if that's possible.
I'll take that back to speak to the individual who's running that. And we do have our outdoor conservation that will begin May 31st. Through September 30th, I think, which is the watering lawns piece will kick in on the conservation bylaw as of May 31st. But yes, I can bring you back an interim update for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. We're going to move on to 5.3, Mannheim Service Area Water Capacity Constraint Update on the work underway. And I believe Metju Getsky is going to kick this off.
Okay, through you, Chair. I think we're juggling speakers, but so just I'll be really short before I pass it to Rod. So the objective with this report today was to provide council and the broader community with an overall update on all the work that's happening across the organization. Understandably, we bring reports to council on the specific reports when they're finalized and the results are ready and can inform the action. But there's a lot of other work that's underway, and to address this important water capacity constraint and where our entire teams are mobilized. So the purpose of this presentation today is to give you an overview, including all the pieces of work that are still in progress. And we'll do that on a regular basis going forward, so you can see all of the different streams of work that are advancing concurrently, whether or not they're ready for an immediate result for council's decision making or not. And I'll pass it to Rod to kick off that overview. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Thank you very much, Mathieu. I want to start off by clearly stating that the region of Waterloo is fully supportive of growth and development, and we understand the impact that this water constraint is having on industry and the community as a whole. Our community grows consistently at approximately 7,000 people per year, and that's growth that we need to be able to accommodate. The interim risk management framework is underway and will be a critical step in informing how the region can support development in a responsible and sustainable way. The framework is anticipated to evolve the region's approach to development comments, and this is something that we are actively discussing with the planning-focused working group with area municipalities. Through conversations with area municipal staff and industry, we are also in the process of shifting our development application comments with respect to holding provisions. We've discussed holding provisions here in a number of meetings, and it's an important planning tool. Where where the area municipality has determined it to be an appropriate tool to address the water constraint, this can be a good tool to allow the planning process to continue. Holding provisions could be lifted upon confirmation from the region that there is a water supply to support the new demand. This is a shift from our last report to Council on February the 10th. We're also continuing to meet one-on-one with developers several times per week, in fact, just about daily, regarding their individual site-specific matters. There are many nuances with regard to specific situations, and we work directly with the developers and the area municipalities on each of these. These conversations have been productive and are helping us better understand the development timelines across the Mannheim service area. Over to you, Commissioner Brothers, for your update.
Thank you, Rod. As mentioned, the short-term solutions are underway for the source of supply, including repairs to both the Parkway and Greenbrook water systems. Also, we've made progress on wells K23 and K93, which will be returning to service over a short period of time. Parkway is anticipated to be back online by the end of the month, and Greenbrook back online in the fall. That's about 140 liters per second, kind of coming on over that period of time, which is substantive. This is an important capacity to support our operational resiliency that's been referred to several times this morning. The modular side stream unit has been ordered, and the work is underway at the Mannheim Water Treatment Plant to prepare the site for installation. That's the geotechnical work that's ongoing as we speak. We anticipate the first ultrafiltration container to arrive this spring, and will continue to keep you updated on this very important installation. While the pilot project does not immediately add new capacity, it is a necessary step forward to ensure that this installation is effective and will lead to a bigger rollout of what we will bring on as new supply capacity. Again, that's been mentioned this morning. So with that, I'll turn this over to Councillor McDonald, who will give you an update on the growth in government work.
Thank you, and through the chair. Stakeholder engagement is well underway with many external and internal groups meeting regularly. As you can see here, there are working groups that bring together regional and area municipal staff on specific focus areas such as technical matters, planning and growth, communications, finance, and also legal. The Development Stakeholder Group is currently meeting weekly and is made up of industry leaders from residential and industrial development, construction and real estate associations, area municipal planning heads, and the Waterloo EDC. It also includes Conestoga Heavy Construction Association, Waterloo Region Home Builders, Indwell, Build Urban, and others. This group is providing input into the reports that are coming forward to Council. They're helping to clarify data and providing feedback on communications tools. We expect these working groups and their scope to evolve as the solutions progress. And I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to the many partners and colleagues who are at the table with us working towards solutions. We appreciate the time you are taking, your candor, and your commitment to finding a way forward. Next slide. On the communications side of things, we continue to evolve our approach as new information becomes available to share. We're now in a regular cadence of updates to Regional Council and the community through our new Progress Update Bulletin, with regular website updates being made as information is available. Anyone can subscribe to the Progress Update Bulletin by emailing waterupdate@regionofwaterloo.ca. It's also shared online bi-weekly. Members of the task force and project staff have also been attending meetings in the community through the Chamber of Commerce, Realtor associations, and others to provide updates and clarify information. And we welcome those invitations to provide information as we are able to. We've also recently brought on additional external communication support. We look forward to this further evolving our approach as we work to keep the community and stakeholders informed. As you may know, an industry white paper is also underway with significant input from area municipal staff and the Development Stakeholder Group. And we believe this shift to standalone water-focused special councils will help to provide regular updates on the progress that we're making across the board. Next slide. So to wrap up, working groups are continuing to meet. Communications materials will continue to be developed and shared out as new information is available. And we look forward to bringing you a fresh update and more information at April's special council meeting. Next slide. And I think that's the end. And the team is available for any questions that you might have. Thank you.
That works really well because we have questions. Councillor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair. Staff, I'm just curious if, I don't know where they slot into the slide there, but our school board partners, I know they have a significant interest in where things are headed in a number of active projects and commitments through funding. And so could you just maybe comment on where and how they're involved in this process and what that could look like going forward?
I will ask Danielle to respond to this, but I'm pretty sure that the school board partners are involved in the planning working group and developer stakeholder. I mean, that's evolved a little bit since over the last couple of weeks.
Thank you for the question. And through the chair, we're happy to bring back the idea of the school board participating on the planning working group moving forward and have a discussion with the planning working group this week. I don't believe that they've officially joined us to date, but with that said, we have had conversations with staff at the school boards to date to bring them up to speed in terms of the capacity constraint at a staff level.
Okay, that's great. And much like other developers, they'll have an interest in specific projects and those case-by-case reviews, and that's really helpful. And I think that's it for now, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Slide number 3 talks about Greenbrook coming on in the fall, Parkway coming on in March, which is wonderful news. So are we looking to allowing significant growth or development in this coming fall with the water coming, those other areas coming back on? And if so, what kind of timelines are we looking for? Because I think that's what the public's looking for is when can we start to move ahead? Because, you know, water capacity used up front isn't what it happens. It's actually a lot of phases to get a development going. So how are we handling the timelines? I think Amy's going to put her hand up.
So I think that's a $100 million question. Amy's turned her mic on. Maybe an addendum to that is when will we be in a position to make those announcements or those decisions, Amy?
So through the chair, the Parkway and Greenbrook, unfortunately, are not new capacity. Those are offline because of mechanical failures and or contamination. So when those come back online, as Commissioner Brothers said, that is just bringing back restoring capacity to operational resiliency. Those two are already included in the 1455. So those will not add any new capacity for development, but they do take the pressure off of the existing systems that are working harder than intended right now. With that said, we are looking to do one upgrade at Greenbrook at the end of this year that will add potentially 20 liters per second of new capacity above and beyond what the original capacity is being restored. So of this year, of those two projects, only potentially 20 liters per second will be new capacity from those two.
Thank you. And just one quick question. Someone from the province has asked me why we haven't applied for funding because they're actually ready to give it to us. So if we could, I'm sure you've got that under control. And just to a little reminder that say to them, show me the money, put the application in. Thank you.
There's a bit of timing difference between when we had projects and when the funding closed, but we are absolutely all over any and every piece of funding we can apply for. Councillor James.
Yes, thank you through you, Chair, and Councillor Foxton, as part of my question, because I was going to say about the money and the funding as we look to put things online and get to greater solutions for this. The question I had was about partly the community partners and stakeholder groups and the post-secondary institutions as well. I think it's similar to Councillor Rodriguez is with the school boards. And just from the academic perspective, are they part of the conversations?
Danielle?
Yes, thank you for the question. And through the chair, I do believe that there has been some connections between the post-secondary institutions and some members of our water team. We're also in connection with the Water Institute at the University of Waterloo to determine how to capitalize on some resources, knowledge that they may be able to offer us moving forward, either through individual connections with the water team or through one of the established working groups. So I do anticipate we'll likely have an update on that in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you. And just one other follow-up in terms of if and how the GRCA is part of these conversations, just thinking about kind of that greater watershed. Are they part of the conversations? Are we keeping them updated? What does that look like for us?
So through the chair, when updates do go out to council and then to the area municipalities, I have been updating the Grand River Conservation Authority. They are also a member of the Conservation Working Group. They have committed to joining that as well. So they will be part of those discussions. I'm not aware if they're part of another one of the working groups at this point, but if they have interest, we're happy to accept them.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Councillor McCabe.
Thank you very much. And thanks for the update on the work underway. I'm curious with respect to the staff that are being recruited, just where we're at in that process, because like have some been able to be hired and brought online, or do we have an estimate of when some of those, I think there was about 9 in total, were going to be deployed? And just part of that is just, you know, we know that staff are under a heavy strain right now. And as Nicole was saying, there's been some staff pulled off the water supply strategy work to work on the water capacity infrastructure work. So, you know, having some additional staff will really obviously help support the load.
So through the chair, I can give an update. I made an offer yesterday for a manager of development applications in water and wastewater. That's the new manager position that will report to me that would replace the old position that was the engineering position held by Kevin Delishny. So we're excited to have this individual joining us. He'll be starting on April 7th in that position. So that's great news for us. We have the engineering positions, the 4 of them posted right now. Resumes are being reviewed. So we're hoping to be able to move that process along as quickly as possible. We were waiting on for the technical, I think it's the technical group throughout the operations team. We were just waiting on a change with respect to salary, but those are ready to go now, so they'll be posted shortly. So we're moving ahead with all of them.
Councillor Gowing.
Thanks, through you, Chair. Going back to Councillor Foxton's question, something sparked in me, and you mentioned that Greenbrook and Parkway are not online currently, but yet we're using those numbers currently. I'm a little confused on why we're doing that.
Yes, so that 1455, sorry, through the chair. The 1455 liters per second is the amount of supply we have when everything is online and functional. So when Greenbrook and Parkway come off, they're still included in that 1455 because the 1455 is all of our systems, if operational and on and running, what they can produce. That's where that number comes from.
And I understand that, but every time we look at what our capacity is currently, we're using that 1455, but you just mentioned that those 2 are not online. So I think that's kind of inflating it when realistically it's less than what we have currently.
And through the chair, those are a little different in the sense that they've been off a long time. We do have wells go online and offline all the time. So if we were modifying that number consistently, we'd be constantly changing that number. So wells go online, offline for maintenance, for repair. These ones, unfortunately, have just been off a significantly long time. But yes, they just won't be net new capacity when they're back.
Okay, I just feel like that we ran into this during the what's the word I'm looking for? The budget process, where we thought something wasn't included and then it was. So I just feel like we should be showing what we're currently sitting at, not what we could be sitting at. That's just my feeling for that.
Amy, can you just speak to resiliency and why that 20% is actually at a negative level right now?
So through the chair, it comes down to that chart that Ryan Snyder had showed us at the last council meeting. I believe at the time of that presentation, we had 208 liters per second offline. So there was the Greenbrook, the Parkway, there was in 2 other wells that added up to 208 liters per second. The demand is also higher than the sustainable capacity, which adds to that. So with Parkway and Greenbrook offline, that's 140 liters per second that's now gone. And so that does put us in a deficit of not having enough operational resiliency. So when everything is online, I think it was 6.9%. Again, I'm just going based on my brain power here. But right now we're at a negative. So once those come back online, it's great because it gives us a little bit of breathing room and allows us to not push those supply wells as hard. But again, I know it's confusing, but just the ones that are offline right now will not be net new capacity, but any new projects like the modular side stream, the Wilmot 30 liters per second, all of those are considered new capacity.
Just one quick
Councillor Gowing?
statement on that. So I appreciate that, but when we say that, okay, great, this is coming on in March, this is coming on in the fall, it makes everybody excited that there's new capacity if we're showing that capacity currently when realistically it's not there. So it just sounds like it's new capacity. So I think we need to be conscious of that when we get it out to the public saying these are new things coming on or back online, but in fact, there's nothing new coming.
And through the chair, we've tried in one of our presentations to have them in separate charts where it said no net new capacity and those were listed. And then we had the chart below where it was new capacity. We tried to break them out. And in the white paper, it is broken out that way. So we try and make it a little more clear in big letters that those 2 projects are not net new capacity. So appreciate that.
Thanks, Amy. Councillor Hunick.
Ms. Shaw, thank you, Chair. Ms. Shaw, my question has a similar premise to Councillor Gowing's, but it's not the same question. So when you said 20 liters per second of net new capacity when Greenbrook comes online, I realized that one of the gaps in my understanding is I have no idea how much water serves how many people. I think maybe there's other people in this room that have that same lack of understanding. So can you explain, like, is 20 liters per second enough for one household on average, or like a high rise? Like, what is that?
Through the chair, I may have to defer to Ryan if he's still here, because I don't know if you have those numbers. I don't at my fingertips to know what 1 liter per second equates to in population.
And I realize we're talking about averages, like we can, yeah, but help me.
Through the chair. So the average water demand changes year over year as we recalculate our numbers, but we're generally around 355 people for every 1 liter per second.
355 people, 1 liter per second, times 20 equals what?
Whew.
Or like...
Quick math. I would need to pull out a calculator.
Somebody's working their calculator. Hang on.
I mean, yeah. I could too, but...
Through the chair, 7,100.
Okay, that is good news, right? Okay, thank you. Bye.
Councillor Vermanovich.
Thank you very much, and lots of good questions and discussion. I just wanted to follow up on this resiliency piece, and I think, you know, as has been explained, and always important to remind ourselves, there's really 2 issues we're dealing with. One is an infrastructure issue, and the other one is looking at, you know, the broader issue of our aquifers and so on, and the capacity of getting the water that we need, and work is happening on both of those spaces. But I guess I just want to really understand, and Ken, maybe this is a question for you, around the 20% number, because there's been some question around, is that the right number? Some say, you know, it's way too high in the fullness of time. Some say it's the right number because we're on an aquifer-based system. You know, you've come at it with a fresh set of eyes. Is it the right number? Do we not know if it's the right number at the present time? I get that right now while we're waiting for some of our infrastructure improvements to happen, maybe it needs to be the right number, but is it the right number in the longer term?
Thank you for the question. I think you have to cast back to the comments that Director Shaw had talked about, is that currently we're operating in the negative. And if you kind of look at the puts and the takes in terms of things that are offline and where the demands are, so we need the 20% now, because in fact we're kind of exceeding that reserve headroom capacity. It's acute in our system because of the complexity of the wells that we have, and we're vulnerable with this well source of supply. That's just what it is. So as I come in and look at this scenario, it's very different than virtually every other system that I've worked in. The sensitivity to the well systems here, as opposed to a surface water supply where you have a single treatment plant or multiple treatment plants, we have 50. And so we have to be very cautious in that we're vulnerable in terms of the aquifer restrictions that we're facing now compared to a source supply system where you can simply draft from the lake that you effectively have the infinite supply in many jurisdictions. So we're doing the analysis now, and I know we'd all like to have this information tomorrow, but we need to do the risk-based assessment where this is going to come back. As Nicole had mentioned earlier, this will come up in terms of, is that the right number? What development might look like? What demands may arise from that over time? I don't have all the detail as I sit here today. You've asked me for a reaction on that. That's how I kind of view it coming in. I mean, we need more data and analysis, and we really do need this framework to come back that will provide additional information in terms of the capacity and demands that will arise over time, and the risks that are associated with any application of the current supplies that are coming. I mean, there's not a zero risk option here. Everything is going to have a measured risk and response depend upon how the rollout will be. And we need to know a little bit better on what that looks like. So if you can be a little bit patient for us to consolidate the work, not only on the demands of the supply, but the aquifer condition as well, I think all of this will come into play. And so that's my, if you will, my 10, 12-day assessment after being here of the situation we're in.
Well, thank you. No, thank you. And that's actually very, very helpful. And I think, I wasn't expecting a definitive answer today. I think the answer that I was hoping for was exactly what you gave, which is, we've got more work to do on this to really look at what the right answer is in the long term. So thank you.
I think we're all really pleased that Commissioner Brothers is such a quick learner. Do you want to add something? Amy wants to add something.
Sorry, I just want to reiterate, the 20% is evidence-based. That is the recommendation that came out of the 2015 master plan. It is based on the needs that we're experiencing and seeing right now. We are often averaging 11% and seeing up to 20. It wasn't picked out of thin air. It's based on also the size of some of our largest systems like Mannheim if one train was to go down. So the 20% is, like Nicole said, we are wanting to adopt the 20%. That is the long-term target. It has been peer reviewed. The piece that is up for discussion right now is during the interim time period until we get enough capacity online, could we in the short term have less than 20? That's the piece that is part of the risk-based framework that we are looking at. But our target moving forward is to have 20%. I do know Agile had recommended up to 30% for the Mannheim service area. So we know that's not going to happen immediately, but 20% was recommended to be the minimum for the Mannheim service area.
Okay, thanks for that added information. I guess I'd be looking to better understand that going forward. And I'm glad to hear that it's all part of the overall review.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy, for adding that. Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. My question is very pertinent to today, and we've talked about it before, and I think I know the answers, but there may be people that don't. So I'm going to ask the question. As we're getting all the flood warnings from GRCA, is there any way that we can, or how are we using the Grand River piece? Because I know we do have water taking from the Grand River. We're not using the maximum, and I think it's a restriction of our equipment. So there's that piece, and then there's the pilot container that says it will be delivered in the spring of 2026. If you listen to the weather forecasters, it's spring now, so do we have a date?
So through the chair, the concrete needs to be poured first. So as Commissioner Brothers mentioned, we're doing the geotechnical work because there is a significant amount of infrastructure under the ground, and we want to make sure, due to the weight of these containers, that we don't damage the infrastructure underneath. So that's the first piece. The concrete being poured will be the next piece for these 4 containers. We do have the first container coming. We don't want it to come until we actually have the concrete area ready for it to be placed. I believe the tentative timeline was June, but again, we put spring because we'll move that forward if we can. It's kind of weather dependent, like you mentioned. With respect to your first question, you are right. We are bound by a permit to take water with how much water we can take from the Grand River for Mannheim Water Treatment Plant. The constraint right now is the treatment process, which is the plate settlers, with how much we can actually treat. So we are hoping that the side stream will be able to get us up to that full amount of what our system is capable of treating.
Councillor Shantz?
And just further to that, I think we store that water in an aquifer then. Is there a capacity on that aquifer as to how much we can store? I guess what I'm wondering, and I appreciate that we don't have the equipment right now to maybe increase the taking, but is the water taking at all dependent on the river flow?
So maybe I'll answer the last question first. The water taking is not dependent on the river flow unless there's a temporary river upset, in which case we just shut down the intake and we have some storage we can float off of. With regards to storing in the aquifer, we do have the aquifer storage and recovery system at Mannheim. We're currently limited in how much water we're able to inject into the aquifer right now, so that's being investigated and studied, and there is a plan for that in the future. But generally that's looked at as there's no net increase in water taking. That's a storage when we do have a little bit of surplus that could be injected into the ground to be tapped into almost like an enormous reservoir.
Thank you very much. I've got one more speaker, Councillor Erb, and then I'm going to suggest we do a bio break.
Thank you, Chair. I understand with Parkway and Greenbrook currently offline, it's reducing the pumping capacity. So when that is restored, what effect does that have on our pumping capacity, which has been part of the problems going forward? How does that get mitigated?
So through the chair, we are concentrating our pumping, you're right, in the Mannheim well field right now, just because as Jeff mentioned last presentation, those are our big workhorse wells. Having the 2 larger systems like Parkway and Greenbrook come back online, that will alleviate the need to pump those Mannheim well fields as hard as we are. So it will alleviate, we can back those off slightly to allow the 140 liters per second from Parkway and Greenbrook to take over some of that work.
So when we saw the damage on those filter, whatever they're called, that helps mitigate that as well. And does that have any effect then on the timing of the repair of that? Or the replacement?
Sorry, could you just?
Well, the pictures we saw of how those filters have been damaged, that's because of the over pumping.
Oh, different projects. So
Yeah.
through the chair, the damaged plate settlers is the Mannheim Water Treatment Plant. So that's the modular side stream. Greenbrook has different issues with respect to the media has kind of escaped from its tanks. We had reservoir issues. So Greenbrook is different. It's a different issue at that site. And and Parkway is also equipment repairs. But I think the one you're referring to with that picture was the Mannheim Water Treatment Plant.
Apples and oranges. Okay, thanks.
Colleagues, this has been a really good discussion. Thank you very much for reading the report and investing in such thoughtful questions. I'm going to call a 10-minute bio break. We'll come back at 11:30. Colleagues, we're about to resume. Councillor Rodriguez. Councillor Erb. The next agenda item are motions where notice has been provided. The first one is from Councillor Craig. Councillor Craig, Councillor James, are you seconding this? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, and it is about a review of the region's water capacity reporting and communicating processes from 2021 to 2026. Councillor Craig, would you like to speak to your motion?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I would. And I've spent some time on this over the last couple of evenings. You know, I find it not fascinating, I don't know how to express it, but sitting here today, listening to all the discussion that is taking place about how we're moving forward and the situation we're in, and thinking to myself, we should have had this discussion 4 years ago, knowing that in the horizon, this was going to come up. And that's what this motion is all about. It's all about how did we get here and understanding how we got here and how we're going to make recommendations to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's what the motion is really all about. So I'm going to read to you. I don't like reading to people, but forgive me. Okay. So there's a number of things I wanted to say about this motion. Why we need to review. I want to talk about staff workload because the pushback I'm getting is staff can't handle these kind of things of an inquiry and so on. I want to talk to you quickly too about whether this is precedent setting and also the consequences of not doing it. So I'm giving you a brief update about where I'm heading. The water capacity crisis affecting the region of Waterloo has serious implications for housing growth, economic development, and long-term infrastructure planning. An independent review is necessary to determine how this situation developed and why early warning signs did not lead to earlier action or clearer reporting to Council. A review conducted by external experts provides credibility and objectivity. It allows Council and the public to be confident that the issue is being examined thoroughly and without institutional bias. The goal is not to assign blame, and I want to emphasize that, but to identify weaknesses in forecasting, monitoring, and reporting so that future infrastructure challenges are identified earlier and managed more effectively. Regarding staff workload, a properly structured independent review will not interfere with staff's efforts to address the water supply challenge. And that's something we're all focused on, and I get that. In public sector investigations, the majority of the analytical work is carried out by the external reviewers themselves. External investigation typically rely heavily on existing reports, modeling data, and technical documentation that staff have already produced. Staff participation is usually limited to a small number of scheduled interviews or clarification meetings that are planned in advance. This approach ensures that staff can continue focusing on their primary responsibility, improving water supply and addressing the capacity shortfall, while independent experts examine how the situation developed. In many cases, independent reviews also reduce pressure on staff by shifting the responsibility for examining the past decisions and system failures to an external body. Independent reviews are common practice when major operational or instructional challenges arise. Municipal governments, hospital systems, and provincial agencies frequently commission external reviews following system failures and planning breakdowns. These reviews bring technical expertise, independence, and public credibility. There is a long-standing practice in Ontario of commissioning independent reviews after major public system failures in order to restore public confidence and identify systemic weaknesses. After the Walkerton tragedy in 2000, the province established the Walkerton Inquiry to examine failures in testing, oversight, and reporting with the municipal water system. Following repeated derailments and operational problems with Ottawa's Confederation Line LRT, a commission launched into the failures of the Ottawa Light Rail Transit system with a public inquiry in 2022. After the 2012 collapse of the Algoa Centre Mall in Elliott Lake, Ontario commissioned a commission to look into what were the structural failures. Ontario hospitals also have had commissioned external reviews in pediatric forensic pathology at Toronto Hospital for Sick Children, and independent reviews at Niagara Health and Windsor Regional Hospitals. So these are just examples of reviews that are done, and they're done in parallel with the existing staff. They're not overwhelming them. They're not doing a number of those things that we are concerned about. And they have been successful in outlining the issues that took place and making recommendation. So the consequences of not doing a review, if the region does not examine how this water capacity crisis developed, several risks remain: loss of public confidence in regional infrastructure planning, unresolved governance issues. If council does not understand fully why the warning signals were not communicated, economic and housing impacts as water constraints affect development approvals. An independent review is a responsible and necessary step. It will provide transparency, strengthen public confidence, and ensure that the region of Waterloo learns from this infrastructure failure. Most importantly, it will produce recommendations for the future that will help council ensure that the critical infrastructure risks are identified earlier and managed more effectively in the future. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor James as a seconder, and then with everyone's indulgence, I'm going to go to Councillor Bravanovich because he has a conflict shortly.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I want to speak to the support to this motion in support of the intent of this motion. Like Councillor Craig, I'm going to read as well, so I can try and stay on script. I support this motion. This is one of the most important responsibilities we have as a region, that our residents, businesses, local municipalities, they depend on reliable and transparent information about capacity to make long-term decisions. So as chair of the committee that this technically falls under, that has been chairing these committees until we've created the special committee for this, which was needed, I've had a lot of time to listen, actively listen to the discussions, heard directly from members of the public, and I'm not just talking developers, I'm talking about, people who are concerned about water, regular everyday residents who are concerned, who want clearer understanding of what happened and how we move forward. And that interest from the community reflects the importance of transparency and maintaining public confidence in our processes. So, when the questions about projections and communication come up, it is responsible for council to seek clearer understanding of process. An independent review can help strengthen government governance, improve reporting systems, and ensure that council receives timely information in the future. For me, the focus should be on learning and improving systems, not assigning blame. That is not what a review is about. I think we need answers, and I think there's an importance in understanding the past to make sure that going forward in the future that we do not incur, or future councils do not have the same situation. And I understand that staff operate with complex processes, and when challenges arise, it is often the reporting structures, escalating protocols, or governance frameworks that need to be reviewed and strengthened. So with that in mind, I do support this motion. I do have one amendment, Councillor Craig, and that is regarding the time. I know you have 6 months on here. I would like to make sure that this is done in a comprehensive manner that isn't rushed. So I would like to suggest between 9 and 12 months for this to come back for review.
Councillor Craig, are you amenable?
Oh, of course I am.
Okay, and with that, I will conclude my remarks. I do hope council, I know there'll be discussion around this, but thinking about future councils, thinking about forward-thinking growth, the impacts on this are not just on development community, because I think that's the pressing, what we're hearing first and foremost, but also on the greater economic stability of this region. So it is critical we do our part as governance, as the Board of Governors for this region, to make sure that we do our part in ensuring this is not something that future councils have to endure. Thank you.
So the mover and the seconder are both agreeable to changing the time frame to 9 to 12 months. Do we have unanimous consent for that change? Okay, I see no objections, so that will be unanimously approved. Councillor Vanovic.
Thank you very much, Chair Redmond, and thank you to Councillor Craig for bringing this motion forward. I know we don't need it, but I'd be happy to third it. Listen, I believe that this is a critical action for this council to take. And I say that because as I reflect back on my time on regional council, or even reflecting my history in local government in general, this is, as I've said before, the single biggest issue in terms of its overall implications on the community that I can recall in my time. And I think this motion is very important because it's critical for us to fully understand where we've come from. We're working now on where we are, and we're also working on where we're going. But as we know, history repeats itself if you don't understand where you've come from. And I think this motion that Councillor Craig has brought forward is really trying to help us understand where we've come from. And it really does, in my view, three key things. It's focused on trust, it's focusing on learning, and it's focusing on acting. And when I speak about trust, it's really working to ensure that there's transparency to understanding how we got here. Listen, I mean, all of us know that for years we received the drinking water summary report. None of these issues were flagged. We know that we were talking about being million ready and constructing more homes, and then in the final weeks of 2025, all of a sudden the world changed, and there was new information, and we had to go in a different direction. And so I think it's important from a transparency point of view and from the perspective of restoring confidence in our residents in general, but also in terms of the business community and the investor community that we embark on this process. And I will agree that this is an issue that we're hearing from all sorts of folks. I always, I think in any community, two of the best places to find out what's happening is go to the grocery store and talk to people or ride in a taxi. And I will tell you, being at the grocery store last weekend, this came up both from staff and everyday citizens at the grocery store who were asking me about it. Secondly, on the learning piece, this is going to help us get to the points of how, what did we know when, why did we take the decisions that staff did in the past, and then ultimately it'll help us with the ensuring that we act going forward in terms of next steps. This is really, in my mind, a tool to help everyone, including the staff team that we have in place, do a more effective job. And I think as Councillor Craig outlined it, it can be done in a way and I expect it to be done in a way that it has little impact on day-to-day business, because the focus of our staff really needs to be on the solutions going forward. So thank you again, Councillor Craig, for moving it, and Councillor James for seconding it, and I'm happy to support it.
So thank you, Councillor Vavanovich. And we don't take thirds for motions, but it's duly noted you're fully in support. So if you get called away, we understand that you are supportive. Councillor Hunick.
Thank you to Councillor Craig for bringing this forward, and thank you to Councillor James for seconding it, and Councillor Vavanovich for outlining the trust building in the community. I do think that's really, really important. I have one concern that I need to lay to rest before I decide to support this wholeheartedly, and that is that we've been told time and time and time again by every expert and person that sat around the table talking about the water issue that our water system is very unique. That is why the provincial monitoring system did not catch the issues earlier, I think, or what I've understood up until this point. So my worry in hiring an independent reviewer is, how do we ensure that that independent reviewer actually has more expertise than we've already heard from? Because if they unfortunately have less expertise, that could lead to bad information that further complicates the matter and messaging to the community.
So who would like to take that one? Matthew?
Through your chair, I can take that one at a maybe at a high level. I think we're looking for different kind of expertise. I think the focus there, and I know the team has been really thinking about and reading the details of the motion, really thinking about what are the reporting mechanisms? What are the triggers for escalation? What information, because you've heard about a lot of information on water that goes to the ministry, but and a lot of it is highly technical. We don't bring that back to council historically. So I think reviewing it from a process standpoint requires a bit of a different kind of skill set. It's less of a technical one, but more of a process and reporting review, understanding and to your point, still with the understanding of the specific risks of our system, because as we understand, the methodology change that was brought forward was in order to reflect the specific way in which our system operates and its specific vulnerabilities. But I think the process piece will be very important. And it will be time. It will take time from staff to be able to inform on how the system works and what its vulnerability might be, what its strengths are. But it will be time well spent, because I think that will help us to really make a more robust reporting process and clarify your role as the system owner in there, and the information that you need to have as the owner of the system to be able to make these long-lasting decisions.
So thank you, Matthew, for that answer. I think because I am in favor of a second opinion, and because this is a bigger issue than this council has ever dealt with, I will support the motion with my concerns noted. I think for me, though, to be at rest, it'll be important for the expertise of whichever independent reviewers we get to be well understood by council and to know how seriously to take their implications. And quite honestly, the fact that Mr. Brothers has only been here for 12 days feels like an independent review, but I realize that's not how it's perceived from an external perspective. So I will support the motion. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hunick, and thank you for the endorsement, which I think we all share, of Commissioner Brothers. Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Madam Chair. Originally, I was not keen on supporting this, but after hearing from Councillor James, and that it's 9 to 12 months, I feel the timing is much better in terms of, I think we've had so many motions where we're asking for information immediately. So, and I think that does put too much pressure on staff. So the fact that we're looking at a 9 to 12 month window, I think takes pressure off staff and will lead to a more fulsome report. And I think that it'll be the new council that gets that report, and between staff and the new council, it hopefully will provide a good tool to make our process better. I do have a question though, and that is how much will this cost? Normally when we have a motion where there's a cost associated with it, that information is given to us. So I do know that these things can be expensive. So I wonder if staff has any projection on how much a review would cost.
Commissioner Steffler is happy to jump in.
Yeah, through the chair. So I think to really get at this, we would go through our normal procurement process where we would scope out and try to identify what the work activities would be to do this. So it's a little difficult to estimate that. I could, ballpark, maybe in the 50,000 range, but it's really difficult until we do a bit of an assessment to see what the scope of it will be, what the work activities would be, and then we would be able to go through the procurement process.
I was concerned because we spent $50,000 on the consultant that reviewed our salaries, which was maybe a 3-week process. I don't know, it wasn't that extensive. So if we're looking at this, it seems much more.
So, Mr. Steffler, is it fair to assume that whether there was an RFP or what those terms of engagement would be, that they could come back and close to council for council review before we sign off?
Yeah, sure. Like we could scope this out a bit more and identify what it would be. We could go through and review some of the applicants that we get that are interested in it and deal with it that way.
Would that satisfy your concern?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. I support the motion for all the reasons that have already been stated. I'm not going to repeat them all. I do have sort of a question, or maybe it's a concern and maybe it's not, and that is looking at just 2021 to 2026. And I'd like to make sure, depending on what happens with the review, that there is the ability to go prior to 2021 so that they're not restricted to this time frame. I'm not sure if that needs to be an
is that something we could bring back?
Or
I guess I'm looking at staff. Amy, do you want to comment? Does that seem like a reasonable time frame to you?
So through the chair, I don't know how that date was chosen. The only thing that may come up is around the 2015 water supply strategy master plan. Like there could be some components around that will feed into some of the history. But again, I'm not sure on the rationale for the 2021. I don't think that's a problem.
Councillor Craig, did you have rationale why you chose that as a start date?
Well, I always have rationale, Madam Chair. I've never done a review like this before or even suggested it. So really, I'm putting out kind of a bare bones kind of issue in terms of how we look at it. I would expect staff to come back and say, well, maybe this should be broader. This is the cost. That's what I would expect. I mean, today, really, I think, hopefully we're moving forward to say, okay, we're going to do it, and then we can sort it out, okay?
So I think with that explicit explanation, Councillor Shantz, we would ask staff to come back and comment if they thought the 2015 Master Water Plan should be part of this.
But I think where I'm going with this is we're asking a third party to come in and do a review. And so the first thing it says, when capacity concerns were first identified. So if they're looking at it and find out that well, there was something that was identified in 2018 that we don't say, I'm sorry, you're only looking at 2021 to 2026. And so, yeah, I mean, our staff could do that. I don't think I need to create more work for our staff. I just want to ensure the external consultants, when they're looking at it, have the capacity to, if they feel it needs to be, to go outside those years.
Ken's prepared to weigh in.
Thank you, Chair. I think by scoping out what the issue is and doing investigation in terms of what transpired when, if it takes us back to that particular date, then I think the consultant should explore that. I mean, it's a trail, it's an investigation, and you follow the leads and investigate that to have a complete, comprehensive assessment. So I think this should be perhaps captured in the request for proposals in terms of sketching out. We're looking at the history here. It may bring you back a number of years back to previous strategic plans, but I wouldn't suggest that we cap it in time. I think we set a framework that allows investigation to proceed. And having said that, so that's my view. In terms of the cost, as we're talking now, extended period of time of 9 months and so on, that will generate budget demands. So in as much as Councillors Seffler and I had some previous discussions on cost, I would expect it to be significantly more than the 50,000 based upon the track of discussion we're having here.
So Councillor Shantz?
So do I need to make an amendment to remove the 2021 and say prior to 2026? Does that have to go as an amendment, or how would I handle that?
If it did, I would second it.
I'm wondering if, hang on a minute, we're going to confer. Tim's going to help us.
So through the chair, I think either approach would be appropriate. It could be an amendment, or the CAO could take it under advisement that it not be limited to 2021 through the appointment process.
So I would make an amendment that we change it from 2021 to 2026 to prior to 2026.
Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Shantz, seconded by Councillor Hunick. Any conversation on that amendment? Councillor Erb? Any, okay. So
I was going to suggest the amendment if Councillor Shantz did not, so that's why I'm on the list, so I can go away.
So we'll take you off the list and we'll now call the questions. So the change in the wording is the region's water capacity reporting and communicating processes prior to 2026? Okay. Use your e-scribe to vote.
I'm in favor.
Colleagues, that is carried unanimously. That's great. So we're now back to the main motion, which, as I will remind you, has been amended to 9 to 12 month period. And Councillor Erb, I think you were up next. Do you want to speak to the main motion?
Yes, thank you. And I'm prepared to support it, and Councillor Craig will be happy because I haven't supported many of his motions in the last month or two. So we're friends again. I hope we're not setting any expectations up in the broader community or around the council table for this council or for future councils that this study is going to show some yaha moment, that all of a sudden something happened. Because I think with our complicated water system and what I've been able to learn from staff, that there's been these indicators over the last 2 or 3 years, and it hasn't been this one thing. There's been a number of things over the last 2 or 3 years that have brought us to where we are today. And so I'm grateful to staff and for the monitoring that they've been doing, that they brought this to us before it's a crisis situation, and that we were able to deal with it now. We're dealing with climate change, but it wasn't a week or two that we realized we had a climate change issue. It evolved over a certain length of time, and we learned that certain foods aren't good for us, and it took years for us to figure that out. And so I think the issue that we're dealing with at the region right now is something that evolved over 2 or 3 years that our staff had been monitoring, and all of a sudden there was a couple of lights that went on that said we need to bring some attention to this. And so I'm grateful for that to happen, and I'm grateful to support the motion that we can create some kind of a confidence in the community as to where we're at with this system. Remembering that we've been told we have one of the most complicated water systems in the country.
So colleagues, I have no further speakers, so I'm going to ask you to cast your ballot on eScribe. Councillor Urbanovich, are you still online? So I'll mark Councillor Urbanovich as absent, although he did indicate his enthusiasm to support this, and it is carried, colleagues. The next notice of motion is from Councillor Gowing regarding permits to take water. Do you have a seconder for your motion?
At the moment, I do not, but I'm looking for one.
Councillor Wolf is willing to second it. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I'm bringing this motion forward because of the groundwater capacity issues that we're seeing around the Mannheim service area. The province's own data shows that there's 108 active water taking permits in Waterloo region, allowing over 1 billion liters per day. Now, that's not saying that we're meeting that target, but it's eligible to hit that target. In the Mannheim service area alone, there's 65 permits allowing up to 740 million liters a day, including 268 million for private permit taking. This motion asks the province to pause new or expanded private permits there until the water supply strategy update is complete, and to ensure the region is properly notified and able to comment on applications. This is just about protecting the long-term sustainability of our groundwater, not to stop production.
Councillor Wolf, did you want to speak to it as a seconder?
Through you, Madam Chair, just to say that I agree with Councillor Gowing, and I think we actually had a delegate this morning, I think Matthew Parker, who spoke very well too about the fact that we should be monitoring the amount of water that the province is allowing to be taken out of our system. And I think by asking for a pause and for them to look at it more closely is something we need to do.
Councillor James.
Thank you for bringing this motion forward, Councillor Gowing. Sorry, through the chair. Thank you, Councillor Gowing, for bringing this motion forward. I do appreciate the intent of it. I agree with the intent of it. Again, I have some concerns that I need to lay to rest before I support it. For the benefit of the community and everyone around this table, in this room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The most shocking thing that occurred to me when I became a regional councillor was that the region and our partner municipalities, in fact, have a limited amount of autonomy. That means in many situations, we must collaborate with the province, and we must, in fact, do what they instruct us to do. Therefore, I'm wondering about the authority to follow Councillor Gowing's motion, and I'm also wondering if in fact we need the province support to fix the water system, which I think we will this motion be unduly prickly toward that relationship, even though the intent is positive and important and good?
So is that a somewhat rhetorical question, or would you like to ask staff maybe to outline the role that the province plays, as well as the role that the region of Waterloo plays in this process as it now exists?
I was hoping that someone could actually answer some of that, at least.
Amy's willing to weigh in.
So through the chair, I would say that we would continue as technical staff if they were to continue asking us for comments on permit to take water if they did not take this recommendation, that we would continue to offer our technical comments based on a risk-based approach. That is how we're doing it now, and we'll continue to do that if asked to do so, looking after our water system. I do think the ministry may not appreciate us telling them how to operate or run their permit to take water process, but again, we have that right to ask for something like that. But we'll continue to work with them on permit to take water applications that we ourselves have, because we also have permit to take water applications for some of these projects that are upcoming. We're also going to be seeking permit to take waters. So we have to be careful that we're not asking for a moratorium on permit to take waters when we're ourselves going to be asking for new permit to take waters.
Chair, can I add 2 cents to that?
Sure.
Again, this is more so just an ask. We can't force the hand of the provincial government when it comes to this. It is just an ask for them to look at the broader picture and look at the private sector, not the public sector, because we do need their assistance on this and approvals on future taking for us. It's more so, it's the sustainability on the private side, but this is just an ask. It's not, you need to do this.
Councillor Hunick?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gowing, for your comments. However, I'm getting the sense from Director Shaw that in fact we do already communicate our water needs and reluctance for water permits and so on and so forth with the province. And passing this motion might actually be prickly for the province and cause them to put a moratorium on us in the future, which we do not want.
So through the chair, to reiterate, we don't see every permit to take water application for comment. The only certain ones that we are asked to comment on, the ones that potentially could have impact on us. We have had conversations with the ministry's permit to take water group, and they have acknowledged that they're going to start taking a larger look at cumulative effects with respect to permit to take waters moving forward. So that is a conversation that is happening at that level with the permit to take water group. So I do know that that's on their radar now as well. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Director Shaw. I'm glad that the conversation is happening, and I wonder if it should remain a conversation rather than a motion. But I will reserve my judgment till voting time. Thanks.
Councillor James.
Thank you, through you, Chair. And I think Councillor Hunick sort of touched on my question. And Fiona, this, I guess, is for you in terms of, Councillor Gowing has just that ask. But I mean, legally, can we do this? The Municipal Act, are there things to be considered? And is this precedent setting if this were to pass? Have other municipalities put something forward similar to this? Just want to know kind of where we are, should this move forward and pass, and any potential implications re Municipal Act or from a legal perspective.
Through the chair, hopefully I've caught all of your items, and if I haven't, then you could provide me some guidance. My read of Councillor Gowing's motion is that it is a request. It is asking for things that the province doesn't currently do as part of its process, and that in and of itself may be problematic for them. understanding that, we're dealing with a unique situation, but it is a request and the province can take it under advisement and take whatever steps it feels are appropriate in response. If you could refresh my memory on your
And then
question.
if there are any municipalities that you are aware of, it may need to come back to us on this, that have put in a request like this.
We would have to come back to you on that. I'm not aware of any similar requests, but I've not done any investigation in that regard either.
Okay, and at the appropriate time, I'm going to ask to defer this to council meeting for staff to get back on some of the, if this has been done before.
This would be the time to do that if you want to move a deferral to when?
To council on the 25th, provided that's enough time, Fiona and your team, to get the information.
Do we have somebody who's going to second that deferral? Okay, Councillor Hunick, although it was thirded by Councillor McCabe, I see too. So speaking to the deferral, Councillor Shantz, do you want to speak to the deferral?
Not really. I have a request for a small change to the motion, but it's not to the deferral.
Okay, I'll come back. Councillor Foxton. Okay, so I'm going to call the question on deferral, and it will come back to council on the 25th of April. Please use your icon to vote. Oh, March, sorry. This is still March. Colleagues, that is carried. I do want to go back to the speakers list because it is coming back. So Councillor Shantz, did you want to make your comment now?
Yes, thank you. Actually, there's two things. One would be a question that can come back when it comes for deferral, and that is, what impact would that have on anyone doing a private well for residents? Because I'm not sure of the process there, so that would be one question. And then the second one is, this is a temporary, it's asking for a temporary moratorium until completion of the region's water supply strategy update, and I wonder if we can put a date or a date range so that when the government takes a look at this, they know what we're asking for. Thank you.
Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, and through the chair, Nestle's did go to the province and request, our City of Guelph, Pushlands in regards to Nestle's. I think this is a good thing. I think under our situation, watching all the areas that involve water within the region of Waterloo is essential at this time. Knowing how these motions go, it's going to go to a ministry staff. The staff will decide whether the minister ever sees it or not. They get thousands of these every single week because I know we've sent them off and our townships and municipalities have sent them off. But I think in this situation, we have to do our due diligence, and this is part of our due diligence, to protect the water that exists within Waterloo region until we come up with a solution that makes water manageable. I think they will understand that and not take offense to it, and I think it's the right course of action. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no further speakers. Colleagues, I want to, so this will be coming back in April, in March. Time flies. I just want to point out we've received written correspondence from Pauline Dench-Miller, Paul Miller, Tori McLean, and Jabred Butt, and they have been received for information. I now would entertain a motion to enact bylaws for second and third reading. If I could have it moved by Councillor Rodriguez, seconded by Councillor Gowing. Please use your icons to vote, and we're confirming the proceedings of the Council of Regional Municipality of Waterloo at this meeting held March the 11th, 2026, to be read the first, second, and third time and finally passed. Colleagues, that is carried. Do we have unanimous consent to adjourn this meeting?
I just want to say,
Okay,
Madam Chair, I think this, we don't want extra meetings, but this idea of having this extra council meeting really proved itself yesterday with committees that we were able to give them the time they required, and again, the attention today. So I think this was a good move. Thanks for initiating it.
Thank you, Councillor Urban. I saw that Councillor Liggett was happy to move adjournment. Would you be happy to second it?
Yes.
And do we have unanimous consent? Thank you all.